What up, everybody? Good morning and happy Football Friday. Dan Kasper Show is on the air. Radio dials to those 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Also online, sportstalk1051.com, where you can stream it, get the YouTube video link. Otherwise, that video link's available on Facebook and Twitter, Google and Alexa home devices, and of course the Sports Talk app. But good morning, and thank you for making us a part of your starts before the weekend here. Let's jump into it. What do we got on the good old game plan here for this morning? Well, we're just a couple days away. Will we see the green and gold punch their ticket into the postseason again this year? Will they get that final spot, the seventh seed in the NFC, or can the Detroit Lions stop them and maybe themselves get into the postseason this year? Yesterday, we talked about what's the biggest factor. Well, now it's a normal Football Friday. What are your keys to victory? What are your key matchups? What are your predictions, your picks? Any other thoughts and analysis that you have on this game? Let's dive into it here this morning, all right? Let's get into it. I want to hear from you. So start hitting me up with some messages, some tweets, some Facebook posts, or comments on the video stream, whatever have you, right? Let's go, baby. Football Friday. Let's hit it. Pumped up. You got your green and gold on and all that fun stuff, huh? Huh? What? Get it? Ready? Ready to go? All right, let's do it. So we got that. Plenty of football chat throughout the morning here. Brandon will be hopping on. Brandon Berg, sports editor of the Chippewa Herald at his normal time in the 7 o'clock hour, all the way to the finish line till 9 o'clock this morning, right before he pops on. We will catch up with our good buddy, Dr. Austin Crow, for Inside the Training Room, brought to you by Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Obviously, we're going to talk about Damar Hamlin. Yesterday, we got some good news. His holding a press conference. It sounds he was able to communicate. Writing down first question that he asked was who won the game. But he's been able to hold hands and grip hands with family and friends. So trending upward, but substantial improvements were some of the quotes being used. Really good turning point. So it sounds like it's trending in the right direction. So good news yesterday. If you haven't had a chance to maybe check out the presser or some of the quotes out there, it's some powerful stuff out there. So it's sounds like it's really good news with Damar Hamlin. But we'll talk obviously a little bit about that with Dr. Crow and such, and throw in a little Chris Middleton talk with him too. Maybe talk about what are some of the potential issues going on with Middleton's knee right now. Speaking of that, also on the game plan, we'll talk some Bucks as they return home here quick for a quick stop against Charlotte before they're off next week on a 4-game road trip that will include game against the Knicks on Monday. But talk a little bit of Bucks looking ahead to that game. So we'll do that. We've got Badger hoops in action against Illinois tomorrow too. So we'll throw some hoop stock into the mix. Should note too with Brandon hopping on, we'll definitely talk some preps and local stuff. We'll highlight that a little bit on there. I do want to talk a little Brewers with him as well, get his thoughts since he's our main man Brewers guy on there. The Wade Miley signing and maybe some lack thereof other signings so far this off season for the Brew Crew. So get to that cream of the crop. We'll do a little shootout. We got our Carpet City Flooring Center Sports Spotlights that we'll pick up there too. So got a loaded Friday program coming at you. But you know how we're starting this thing off. You know how we're kicking this thing off, right? A little Football Friday action coming at you. So Let's start to hear some of your keys to victory, your key matchups, predictions, your picks, and if you got any bold predictions, go ahead and throw those out there too. I should know too. We kind of have a decision, maybe sort of, on the Buffalo and Cincinnati game. It'll be voted on. So, first of all, in case you didn't hear about it last night, but the game between Buffalo and Cincinnati will not be resumed, has been canceled. And it's a little complicating here. Now, nothing's really official in terms of like playoff seedings. The owners are going to vote on it today. But some of the key factors into this thing is that not playing the Buffalo Cincinnati game will have no effect on which clubs qualify for the postseason. So no club would qualify for the postseason. No club would be eliminated based on the outcome of that game. Um, so what they're going to do here is it's kind of interesting here. Cincinnati will win the AFC North. However, because it's based off win percentage. However, if Baltimore were to beat Cincinnati this weekend, then this is where it gets really they're gonna coin flip it to see who gets the home game between Cincinnati and Baltimore. I know, kinda, a little bit out there. So, yeah, it's just it's kind of it. I'm trying to go through all this again. It's and then the weird thing in here with Cincinnati too, they clinch the division, but they might not host a home game, but then they get a lower draft pick because they clinch the division and such. So there's some people asking or kind of throwing out there like, "Oh, what does this mean about, like Cincinnati and such?" But that's kind of and again, it's nothing official yet. It's being proposed by Roger Goodell. It'll be voted on by the owners and such. But the other thing too is there might be a neutral site when it comes to the AFC Championship game. There might be a neutral site when it comes to the AFC Championship game, depending on who, what teams would advance to that. So we might have to take it a week by week kind of scenario here. But yeah, the coin toss. Going back to this potential coin toss here, the fates of heads and tails might rely on a home game or not when it comes to the postseason here. But Tom Pelissero, the coin toss would only take place in the event the Ravens are the sixth seed in the AFC and have a wild card matchup with the Bengals. If Baltimore moves up to the five seed, setting up a matchup with the AFC South winner, then no coin toss necessary. So now, if did I say Baltimore wins? So it depends on if Baltimore is going to be the sixth seed this weekend, after this weekend, or if they're going to be the fifth seed. Yeah, coin flip would end up deciding home field in a playoff rematch with the Ravens and Bengals. So kind of weird. Bengals are going to be recognized as the AFC North champs, but they might not necessarily host a home game, depending on who they play. And then the other one is that neutral site for the AFC Championship game. This is how it kind of will unfold. If the Chiefs lose to the Raiders on Saturday, tomorrow, and the Bills win, the Buffalo Bills are the one seed, and then the AFC Championship game would be in Buffalo, if Buffalo obviously gets there. If the Chiefs win and the Bills lose, Kansas City is the one seed. AFC Championship game is in Kansas City. However, maybe in a more likely scenario, if you base it based off of the favorites, if both Chiefs and Bills win and then they meet in the AFC Championship game, then it would be a neutral site. Whew. All right. Again, we might have to take this week by week sort of thing. But Again, it'll be official if they vote on it later today. They're having, an emergency owners meeting, and I think, for that not to pass, was it, 9 owners that would have to vote against it? So, but this again would just affect the AFC side of things, not the NFC. Although there was a rumor kinda going out there, could the NFL expand it to 8 teams? Could they expand it to 8 teams for this year? But apparently that wasn't discussed, so, but there you go. That's the decision at hand, right now at least, unless, they vote it down, so, but, alright, let's, get things going here. Let's, get the opening drive. Talk a little green and gold and the Detroit Lions. Let's get some predictions. Give me some scores. What is the biggest key matchup in this game? We went through the key factors yesterday, or the biggest factor, but now what are your key matchups? Talking like offensive line versus defensive line, corner versus wide receiver, that sort of thing, and what are your keys to victory? What are your keys to victory? Start giving me your thoughts, all right? Hit me up with a text on the Two Doctors Bullpen line, 715-830-1912, or on Twitter at DANKASPER, Facebook.com/Kasper Sports, or on the video stream. You can comment on that baby there too. So let's get going. Take the first break, and then the opening drive coming up in just a couple minutes here. Just a couple days away. Will we see the green and gold clinch another spot into the postseason? Let's discuss. Speaking of the podcast brought to you by our good friends at Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford, we'll have another episode up after the show this morning. Brandon and myself will be on there recording some stuff, so make sure you are subscribing to it for free. It's like following it. They use the word subscribe, and I know subscribe means you got to kind of think you have to pay for something. But no, you don't have to pay for this. Trust me, you don't. But if you listen to it on one of your favorite podcasting platforms that allows you to rate it or review it, give it that 5-star and positive rating so other people can find the podcast. Appreciate that if you don't mind. So, but hit that up after the program will be up later on this morning. But we've had a few episodes already up this week. If you don't have a podcasting platform like Apple or Google or Spotify or Stitcher, you can check it out at sportstalk1051.com. A couple other things too I wanted to note that we might hit up coming up a little bit later on is that well, the offseason for Badger football might continue to be a little bit more exciting. CJ Williams, the USC wide receiver, 4-star receiver coming out, he's entering the transfer portal. And he tweeted out yesterday, or I should say last night, "I'll see you tomorrow, Madison." So maybe coming for a visit to Madison, talking about needing some wide receivers and such. Can they get CJ Williams to come over to Wisconsin now? So a lot of people excited about that. And as we'll get to the Bucks chat. Yesterday we said not a whole lot of reports and rumors going out there. Well, we got one more now that the Bucks are, according to Matt Moore of Action Network, Bojan Bogdanovic from the Detroit Pistons. Apparently, that's a target for the Bucks. So we'll see. It'll take quite a bit to acquire him, but that's one report out there right now. So, but we'll hit that up coming up a little bit later on this morning. So, Football Friday opening drive. Let's hit it. Packers taking on the Detroit Lions right now. Both these teams, I think you could say, are a little bit different than when they last met back on November 6th. That kind of sparked the run for the Detroit Lions after that victory against Green Bay in Detroit, the 15-9 victory. Since then, if you kind of look at it here for Detroit's sake, since that game, they've been on a nice little run. They've only lost 2 games since November 6th, putting up 31 points against the Bears the following week. It was 31-30. 31 points against the Giants, 31-18. They did lose to Buffalo, 28-25. Put up 40 against the Jaguars in a 40-14 victory. 34-23 victory against the Vikings, 20-17 victory against the Jets. They did fall to the Panthers, 37-23. And then last week, putting up 41 against the Chicago Bears. You look at the Packers, and obviously we know a little bit of their stretch in these last few games ever since that loss to Philly, if you will. The Packers are riding a 4-game winning streak right now, wins against Chicago, which I think it could kind of say maybe it was that fourth quarter that maybe turned it around here a little bit for Green Bay, come from behind victory. Then they follow it up after their bye week, defeating the Rams, defeating Miami on Christmas Day, defeating Minnesota this past weekend here. If we look at some of the numbers here, points per game, obviously Detroit is averaging more points per game right now, 27.1, compared to Green Bay's 22.1 points allowed per game. Detroit, though, allowing 25.7, Green Bay allowing 21.9. If we look at total yards on offense, Detroit's averaging 393.4 yards per game on offense, 263.8 of those coming via the air through the passing game, 129.7 on the ground. Packers, meanwhile, averaging about 230 passing yards per game, 125.6 on the ground there. So yards allowed, though, Detroit is allowing quite a few yards, over 400 and 414.3 to be exact. They have been giving up 265 through the air and giving up almost 150, 149.3 on the ground to be exact. For as much as we've talked about the Packers run defense a little bit better, still not a great number, but Packers defense giving up 141.8 on the ground and just 208 through the air. So those are just some of the statistics, some of the numbers with these two ball clubs here. Right now, the Packers are 4.5-point favorites. If you look at the spread here, the over under is set at 49. We went through the big factors yesterday. Your number one factor in this game. So now we're kind of taking a look at some of the key matchups and keys to victory. I'll start it off here a little bit with some of the key matchups. If we look at the last game here, and again, obviously, I think a lot of us would say these teams are a little bit different now since they last met. But if you look at that first game, Jared Goff was 14 of 26 for a $137, a couple touchdowns, and that was the last interception he threw. Jamal Williams carried the ball 24 times, 81 yards. St. Brown was their leading receiver, 4 catches for 55. This was also the game where the Packers and Aaron Rodgers threw 3 interceptions, and a couple of those down in the red zone there. That really kind of, stalled Green Bay. Green Bay didn't put up any points in the first half when it looked like they were going to come away with a couple early scores in the game, but then throwing those uncharacteristic interceptions in the end zone there. I feel like that's not going to happen again. I feel like that's not going to be the case, but I guess never say never at that point. But yeah, in this game too, or in that previous game, Devondre Campbell wasn't playing in the game. If you kind of factor that in, that was Chris Barnes led the team in tackles. Now Chris Barnes not even getting activated for games. Have you guys noticed that? You guys noticed that a little bit there too? But nonetheless, kind of taking a look at some of this other stuff, some of the key matchups. I think one of them for sure that we have to focus on is St. Brown and Jair Alexander. Will the Packers kind of follow a similar path to last week with Justin Jefferson and kind of have Jair Alexander matched up on him most of the time? Will they kind of switch that up there just a little bit? But I would say too, and St. Brown's a fantastic wide receiver. He is an absolutely fantastic wide receiver, but they've got some other options on the receiving end for Detroit here too. So when you kind of look at this, you got Jameson Williams. I always get Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, the former Ohio State teammates mixed up. But Jameson Williams still kind of coming back from his ACL injury. You got DJ Shark over there too. Josh Reynolds is over there as well. So they've got some nice younger depth at wide receiver to pay attention to. But I would have to imagine Jair is going to be the guy that, if they follow a similar path or similar game plan to last week, Jair is going to be the guy matched up with St. Brown. But that, I think overall, it's going to be the Packers secondary and their corners matched up with these wide receivers. And, you got Raymond over there for the Lions too, who's actually their second leading receiver in terms of yards, 550 yards. So, yeah, I think this is going to be one of the key matchups in here, especially with the way Jared Goff has been playing and protecting the football, not throwing interceptions since that last Packers game. Can those corners, can that secondary continue to force some turnovers? Can they get their hands on some balls out there? Can they, maybe make a couple interceptions here? We went through the numbers yesterday in terms of the turnovers and compared it. And that's where a lot of you too thought turnovers were going to be the biggest. The turnover differential was going to be the biggest factor in this game. And if you miss the numbers here with the turnovers, let me see if I can bring them back up here. Just a sec here. Where'd it go? I thought I had it saved right here. I'll have to check it here in a little bit. But that's essentially what it is. The last couple of games here, the Packers, they have been, I think it was 12 turnovers. Yeah, 12 turnovers in the last 4 games. So if you do easy math, here it is. Lions are 7-1 when not turning the ball over. 1-7 with at least one turnover. Packers 12 takeaways over their last 4 games. As we mentioned, Jared Goff, 0 picks in the last 8. Packers 6 interceptions over the last 2. So which one's going to give? So I think that's obviously one of the biggest key matchups in this game is going to be that Packers secondary going up against these wide receivers for Detroit. But also to help factor in, to help maybe create some of those turnovers, I think this defensive line for the Packers has to continue to play some solid football and to get some consistent pressure on Jared Goff. You know, a nugget here, Kenny Clark started off the season really hot, right? You know, started it off the first couple weeks, very, very like Pro Bowl, one of the best defensive linemen in the league. Kind of quieted down in the middle part of the season. But as of late, these last couple weeks, he's gotten back into it. Look at these numbers. This is from Zach Cruz. Weeks 1 through 4, Green Bay, when they were 3-1, Kenny Clark had 14 pressures, 4.7 per game, 7 stops. Weeks 5 through 12, when Green Bay went 1-7, just 16 pressures, that's only 2 per game, and only 5 stops. Now, weeks 13 through 17, similar to the first few weeks of the season, 13 pressures, 3.3 per game, 5 stops. That kind of paints a picture of just how important defensive line and Kenny Clark has been for the Packers in these last couple weeks. That needs to continue here, especially, no Rashawn Gary. Where's the pressure been coming from? I think a lot of credit you have to give to the defensive line play. Kenny Clark, Slayton had a great game last week. The week prior in Miami, Reed had a good game. Guys have been stepping up, but those guys are going to have to do it again to not only put the pressure on Jared Goff and kind of collapse that pocket, but also to slow down their former running mate, Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams is probably going to eclipse 1,000 yards rushing this season, first time in his career. Dude has also rushed for 15 touchdowns this year. I mean, once he gets in the red zone, once they get to that goal line, Jamal Williams, nobody's hasn't been able to really stop him this year. And Detroit's offensive line has been better this year compared to previous years. So this will be a challenge for this Packers defensive front. Last week, Minnesota was banged up with the offensive line. Green Bay took advantage of that. It helped playing at Lambeau Field, making it loud there, making it difficult on a third-string center. So I would argue that a key matchup again in this game is going to be the defensive line of the Packers going up against this offensive line for the Lions. Can the offensive line for the Lions give Goff enough protection to find some receivers down the field? Can they open up holes for Jamal Williams in the running game over there? Can they do it? That, to me, is another key matchup in this game. And then you look at defense. Let's start off with Detroit. Now, Detroit's got a couple of younger pass rushers that, if they continue this trend, could be a couple guys to watch for. Obviously, everybody knows Aiden Hutchinson, second overall pick in the draft. This year, he's got 7.5 sacks. He's actually got 3 interceptions, too, to his game. But some may not know of James Houston, the linebacker. He's a rookie, Jackson State. He was a 6th-round pick for the Lions this year. He leads the team in sacks, 8 sacks so far this year. Between him and Aiden Hutchinson, the 2 rookies, maybe Detroit's got something there. A couple pass rushers to be aware of. So again, the Packers' offensive line, going to have to pay attention to them. But this offensive line for the Packers, ever since, it's kind of settled down, David Bakhtiari returning to the lineup, Yash going back to left guard, that offensive line, we talked about it a couple days ago, I think has been one of the more overlooked, maybe underappreciated units for this Packers team in the last few weeks. But they're going to have a test going up against these younger pass rushers. Can they continue to give Aaron some protection in that pocket? Can this offensive line open up some holes for the running game for the Packers? Because in that first game, Aaron Rodgers was your leading rusher, 4 carries for 40 yards. A.J. Dillon had 11 carries for 34. Aaron Jones, 9 carries for 25 yards. You want to see those numbers. You don't want to see Aaron Rodgers as your leading rusher, number one. No, you can't have that. So can this Packers offensive line continue to open up some holes for the likes of Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, creating those holes? Can the blocking get to the edge? We know Green Bay likes to run on the edge, right? Those pitches out to Aaron Jones and such. Little A.J. Dillon up the middle. But I think Aaron Jones has to be, we want to talk about like a key player in this game. I think Aaron Jones has to be a key player in this game. You know, just the 9 carries in that first game against Detroit. Only 2 catches on 2 targets in that game. He's got to be a guy. He's got to be a guy. And you look at some of the other numbers here. Christian Watson in that game, just a couple targets too. Romeo Doubs, 1 target, 1 catch. Alan Lazard was your leading receiver, 4 catches, 87. Josiah DeGuara had 5 catches for 41. I feel like at least this Packers offense is better, is more consistent than what they were going up against Detroit back in early November on the 6th. And I feel more confident that, they're a little bit, that they're going to score more points, that they're not going to turn the ball over in the end zone twice, or in the red zone like they did twice in that game too. But, never say never, I guess. But no, going back to, key matchups and such. Again, Packers offensive line going up against a Detroit defense that has struggled. They've given up a lot of yards. There's no doubt about it. They've given up a lot of yards. They're a flip-flop kind of group, whereas you look at the Detroit's offense, one of the best in the league, a lot of statistical categories, but then on the defense, you kind of flip-flop it. They're towards the bottom in a lot of different categories. So this Packers offense should have the ability to move the ball against this Detroit team, against this Detroit defense. It's just you can't turn the ball over like you did in the first game and come away with 0 points and just let Detroit hang around. You can't do that. I don't think they'll do that. But if they're going to drive the ball and they're going to have those 6-7 minute drives, which I think they have to win the time of possession, keep that Detroit offense off the field, you have to come away with touchdowns instead of field goals. You have to have better success in the red zone than what you have been having throughout the most part of your season. Once you get inside that 20, come away with touchdowns instead of field goal attempts. And I just think this defense has to kind of, continue to bring that energy. I think that's also one of the keys to victory in this game is this Packers defense has to come out there, continue to play at a high level, continue to bring that energy. If you're going to the game and you are a Packers fan, you have got to get loud in that stadium. Because I think this defense really feeds off that, but this defense has to continue to play at a high level, high energy, being aggressive, getting after it. Because I have the confidence, I think this offense is going to be able to put up enough points. I think Green Bay is going to put up at least over 20-some points in this game. I think they're going to do that. But I just want this defense to continue to do what they were doing ever since really the second half in Miami. I know it's not a big sample size because that was just on Christmas Day here. But being aggressive, trying to confuse Jared Goff with some of the coverages, some of the schemes. And Joe Barry's changed it up since the bye week. Getting creative and maybe some pressure packages, that sort of thing. So to kind of recap it, I guess, my key matchups, we can go through a lot of it here, but my key matchups, I'm looking at Packers secondary passing game from the Lions? Can the Packers secondary get their hands on some balls, create some turnovers, get some picks? Can that Packers defensive front help them out a little bit by bringing some consistent pressure, collapsing the pocket against Jared Goff, going up against that Detroit offensive line, but also kind of clogging the running lanes? So Detroit is struggling to run the football. I know Detroit's really going to want to run the football, especially outside. They're going to want to rely on Jamal Williams and such. But can they slow that down? Can they stop them there? And then Packers offensively, can that offensive line protect Aaron? And also, Aaron kind of has to start off a little hot, I think in this game. I think you can make the case, maybe, just being a little apprehensive in the early parts of the games, maybe, holding on to the ball, maybe double clutching it a little bit here and there. I think he's got to start off hot right away too. But, the offensive line continue to protect Aaron, continue to play at a high level, and create some running lanes for Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Lions defense has given up a lot of yards. Let's see this offensive line for the Packers dominate up front and create those running lanes for Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon that will allow the Packers to utilize their play action game and maybe hit some deep threat or deep shots down the field. So another key matchup, Packers offensive line going up against Detroit. And I think, some of the other keys to victory, don't turn the ball over like they did in the first matchup. Get the running game going. Stick with the running game. Defense has to continue to bring the level that they have been, that high level, that swagger. Continue to bring some pressure. Win that turnover battle. I guess easier said than done, right? So, all right, let's take a break. Let's get some of your thoughts, though. You can hit us up with a text, tweet, Facebook, however you want to go about it. We'll be back after these words. A little bit colder out there this morning if you haven't stepped outside yet, so it might be a good reminder to start your vehicle up a little bit earlier, let it warm up. But, if you're a little bit worried whether your vehicle is going to be able to start up in the mornings because of your old dead battery, might be time to grab a new one. Head on over to ASAP Used Auto Parts right here in Eau Claire on just pass or right across the street from the Dodge there, Menominee Street in Eau Claire. But not only do they have the new batteries that you can load up there, new batteries, you got your oil changes. You can get some oil changes over there. You can get some high quality used auto parts as well. So whenever for all your some of your car care needs, maybe you're kind of putting together a vehicle. Maybe that's one of your hobbies this winter, kind of redoing a vehicle or looking just to save some money on a high quality used auto parts. ASAP Used Auto Parts, your go-to place. Go check them out. Menominee Street. Visit their website, asapusedautopартsec.com. Or again, if you just need that oil change, or you need a new battery, or you need some new tires, because let's face it, some of these roads right now, the side roads, with the weird weather we've been having, there's some bumps in there, right? Yesterday I was like, holy moly, it feels like there's some potholes in there. But if you need those new tires too, ASAP Used Auto Parts, your go-to location as well. All right. How about these Nuggets here too? I think one of my key players in this game is going to be Aaron Jones. I love this number here. Lions are giving up 5.3 yards per carry in the run game, which isn't worse. The Chargers are the worst, but it's the same as home and away. 5.3 yards per carry. Lions are also giving up 6.7 per carry on shotgun runs. 6.7 yards per carry on shotgun runs. So I look at this. The Packers, I think, have to really expose that and get Aaron. I know Aaron Jones is a little bit banged up and such. He's been dealing with some injuries, some lower body injuries and such. But I think they really got to expose that and get after it. I mean, come on. Cold Sunday night at Lambeau Field. It's not going to be cold, but regardless, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon up the middle on the outside. Let's get it going. Really quick phone call here this morning. Good morning. Who are we chatting with?
Good morning, El Capitano. How are we this game day Friday?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, T-Bomb?
I'm doing really good. I'm ready to roll. I'm feeling a little bit optimistic. I'm feeling good. I think, you know what? We're going to sneak ourselves into the playoffs, I think, and I hope. But,
you don't sound very confident. You don't sound very confident.
I will be honest with you. I was more confident that we would wax the Vikings than I am that we'll beat the Lions.
Why is that?
It's just that team, and I could be wrong, but they are just gritty, man. They freaking fight. You're bringing up some great numbers, and one might think it's going to be easy to run on these guys, but geez, they find a way and they play tough. And the biggest thing is their offense, man. They can score. They are a legitimate top 5 offense, and that's what I'm more concerned about, is having to stop them. Can't have any stupid turnovers, but I feel like we're going to be at home. We're going to our track is going to slow them down a little bit. I think Green Bay should walk away, but if we do lose, I will give kudos to an avid listener that's out there, Detroit Doug. A guy I've known for many years. Die-hard Lions fans. I can't tell you how many lunches I've had on his wallet. It's been great, but I'll feel bad for true fans like him that have followed that team through thick and thin. But they have a bright future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't like that you're sounding very kind of not sure on yourself right now. I don't like that.
Well,
you got to change that up.
It's not that I'm not sure. I feel that Green Bay should win this game. I just have some nerves about it. That's all. I was, like I had said prior to the Vikings game, if it was a close game, we were losing. Mm-hmm. If otherwise, Green Bay was going to knock the brakes off them, which they did. This game, it's all going to come. We can't have any stupid turnovers. We can't have, like Mercedes Lewis did against the Niners last year, and have a fumble to swing momentum, because we can't give extra possessions to that offense. But the recipe's there. We got the team. Hill and Aaron Jones. If Rodgers throws for 250. That's a bad sign. Mm-hmm. We should be running the ball all day long, keep their offense off the field, and build up our points through. That's my take on it. I do think Green Bay wins. I think it'll be 23-17. I'm worried that it's going to be close, but you know what? We're at home, and they're doing it. It's becoming a magical run. You know, you look back at the 2010 team, and it was very similar to this. So much hope, so much anxiety. We look back on it now like we ran the table. We were Super Bowl champs, blah, blah, blah. But it was a feeling a lot like this during that season.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were highly optimistic. Like, we get in, we got a shot. We get in, we got a shot. Very similar to what we're dealing with right here. And Aaron Rodgers said it on the Pat McAfee show last week. This team, he feels, is better than that team, which that was very surprising to hear that, but that's what he said. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future. It all starts Sunday.
Yeah, I think one other. I know we talked about time possession, but I was looking this up here, and during this stretch from Detroit here, ever since like the Packers game, the only 2 times that Detroit did not lead in time of possession was their 2 losses too. That was the Panthers and the Bills. Otherwise, Detroit, you talk about the offense and keeping them on the field. That's why I feel like time of possession is going to be crucial in this game. Every other win that Detroit has had during this stretch, they've led in time of possession too. So I know everybody talks about turnovers, which is key, but I also feel like you can minimize that with having long, sustaining drives with your own offense for Green Bay.
Yeah, I concur 100%. You know, you chew up the clock, use that running game. I think it's going to be a different the defensive scheme, in my opinion, has to change over what we did with Minnesota. I think if you try and get your hands up on Amon-Ra St. Brown and he gets a step on you, it's over. I think what I would like to see the Packers do is go one-on-one across the board with the receivers and give some help over Amon-Ra, and you load that box and stop the run. Mm-hmm. Make Jared Goff beat you. That's my thought, my opinion, but that's a fan living in Eau Claire. I'm not one of the coaches. It'll be interesting to see, but I'm really pumped up. 1 and in, and I know we're running short on time. I don't want to hold you over another, curveball a little bit, but boy, this shit, you talked about what they're doing with the, Cincinnati and Buffalo game and everything and canceling that game. The NFL is a billion-dollar organization, and a huge part of that is not just sports gambling, but, DraftKings, fantasy football and stuff. That's what lures all these fans in to watch because they've got their own money on the line and their own thing. And boy, this really screwed up championship weekend for fantasy football. And there's a lot of different people with a lot of different opinions on that across the country. So I'd really like to see a deep dive in that by somebody, and I'm sure there will be soon. But holy smokes, there's got to be a lot of pissed off people out there that could have had their championships won in big money leagues that are no longer going to get that. So,
well, to counter that though, I think DeMar's health is the most important thing at that point though too.
Oh, 1,000%. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm not saying they should have kept playing the games. Zero. I'm just saying the circumstances. Mm-hmm. Really, how do you fix that? It's something crazy. But no, 10,000%. That man's life. I mean, for crying out loud, they're doing CPR on the field. You can't. The game's over.
Right.
I have no issue with that.
Yeah. All right, C-Bomb. Hey, appreciate the phone call, buddy. We'll check in soon. Okay.
Right on, brother. Have a great weekend. Hopefully, we have a fine victory Monday.
You got it. There you go. There's C-Bomb hopping off. We'll get some of more of your texts coming up here in just a couple minutes, but we got a couple minutes here to the top. Good morning, Morgan.
1 to 10. Where are your nerves for the game?
My nerves?
Yeah.
I'm not really nervous right now.
No?
Wait till Sunday, then I'll get a little bit more.
Okay, future you. Look at future Kasper in the man cave. It's like, just coming up, creeping up pregame. Where are your nerves now?
Nerves, anxiety, stress. My watch will probably go off. It'll probably be about a 7 or 8.
So you're going to need the defib close by.
Maybe.
Little emergency kit.
Yeah.
Well, let's take your mind off it for a while. And I know a lot of people have game day nerves and jitters already starting ahead of Sunday night. So you remember the wrong game?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to completely palate cleanse. All of your game day brain is going to get a rest and a break. All I'm going to do is ask you a question. The only thing you have to do, my friend, is be wrong. That's it. That's the only thing. So, for example, if I say, name a color in the rainbow.
Yeah, you do this to me all the time, and I always say one that's in there. So green's not in there, is it?
It is.
God dang it. So,
you was black. You would have to say, okay.
Yeah.
That was a warm-up.
White.
Okay. So we're getting game day brain palate cleanser here with the wrong game. Kasper, something you put on a salad.
Ketchup.
All right. See, now you're
Yeah.
not so bad. Scary monster.
Barney.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
argument could be made. Popular vacation destination.
Lambeau Field.
Hey, hey. Yes. How about Antarctica?
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, you think so? What about a pet you would buy your little guy Hutsy?
The wrong game, right? So
Wrong
it'd be a
game.
snake. Yeah.
Yeah, anaconda, probably one of the big ones.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gag, right?
Yeah.
And a color that's not on a stoplight. Double negative.
Blue.
Not on.
Not on blue.
Not on. It's the wrong game. It's kind of a trap.
Oh,
Oh, come on. Red, yellow, green.
Yeah.
Okay. Wah, wah,
Thank you.
wah.
All right, second hour kicking off on this Friday morning. Appreciate you tuning in, however, wherever you may be tuning in. We're going to catch up with our good buddy, Mr. Brandon Berg, sports editor extraordinaire from the Chippewa Herald. It's been a couple weeks since we chatted with Brandon, so it'll be good to catch up with him. We'll get back to some more of your picks, predictions, keys to victory, key matchups. We'll make our own picks and then set kind of what we think the playoffs are going to look like after this weekend's games. Plus, we'll throw a little Brewers chat in there with the signing of Wade Miley the other day. Got to get Brandon's thoughts on that. But we kick off this Friday, as we usually do every Friday, with our good friend, Dr. Austin Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. And Austin, obviously, we've had quite a few listeners asking if you were going to be on this week because of what happened on Monday night. But I mean, just kind of generally, Austin, I know you and I kind of exchanged some texts on Monday night, but I don't think I've never seen anything like that before. I'm assuming you haven't seen anything that scary on a football field or maybe even on an athletic field before.
In person, no, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Because that's everyone who takes care of athletes in that setting. That is our always number one fear, and those type of things. There are to a certain extent freak accidents, but I will tell you, I mean, you could see the level of preparedness that they had as far as the medical staff, as far as emergency personnel. And I know, it was been said by some people, but I think there's some serious truth in it. I mean, short of having that event happen in a hospital, happening at an NFL game is probably the second safest place you can be. I mean, there's multiple physicians, EMT, paramedics, ambulance. I mean, like all those services are immediately available. So, it shakes you to see something like that, certainly. And I mean, thank goodness people don't have to encounter that day in and day out. But I mean, to see someone's life in the balance is certainly eye-opening, to say the least.
You mentioned that, and I saw that too, where like maybe the second safest place would have been like the football field because of all that staff. I've seen that too. And the last couple of days, I'm sure you probably saw some of the clips from the press conference from the hospital yesterday. But a lot of people have been talking about, the athletic trainers and the emergency responders, just how quick they are. And I know you've worked the sidelines as well in the past too. But I mean, to have that, I mean, that's amazing. That truly is amazing too, for what you guys do to, have that quick, thinking and just getting on the field and because I got to imagine they're probably never thinking of a situation like that ever happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's fluke. I mean, you can spend your entire career doing this, and thank goodness, rarely will you come across this. So, I mean, there's a reason it's so rare, is because it is such a freak, overlap of occurrences for this specific entity to happen. And so now there are other things that can happen, and sudden cardiac death happens, and we see that in athletes. There's a number of different reasons for it. In this case, although they haven't officially made the diagnosis, it almost certainly was commotio cordis, which is, just to put it in simple terms, he was struck in the chest and it hit directly on the heart at the exact right, or I guess in this case, wrong time during basically the electrical impulses that comes through the heart. And it basically knocks, the heart is like a circuit. You have an impulse that runs through it and it disrupts that circuit and the heart goes out of rhythm. And so the general term for that is an arrhythmia. But specifically, this will knock a person into what's called ventricular tachycardia, and which basically means the heart's just spasming. And your heart is a pump, as most of us know, and it pumps the blood to our body. So if it's just sitting there spasming, it's not pumping blood, which is why you lose consciousness immediately and go down. And so when someone, I can tell you that the training staff, you saw them run out there. They ran out there with an intent. They knew something bad had happened because he lost consciousness. And there's different injuries that we see. We see people take hits. We see people go down with extremity injuries, which are, of course, by far the most common thing we take care of. So injured knees, ankles, shoulders, etc. But when you see a player collapse, running out there, you're thinking a whole different set of problems. And so the first thing we always evaluate are the ABCs. So airway, breathing, circulation. So you're looking at literally life vital signs. You're trying to make sure the patient's alive out there. And so that's what they do. And with him, immediately they discovered obviously that several of those things were out of whack, which is why they almost immediately began CPR. And then luckily they also had an AED, so an automated external defibrillator. And so they put him on and were able to shock the heart and get him back into rhythm. ultimately he ended up being intubated, so breathing tube, and brought to the hospital. And from what I understand, they've released that he had a second kind of collapse, if you will, at the hospital, and they had to be resuscitated a second time. So he may have went back into an arrhythmia, and they had to shock him again. But now it sounds like he's stable. He's done some communication, which is really the big concern on this. I mean, I think as long as you can get the heart back into a rhythm, he was going to be okay in that end. The question was, if you're not pumping blood to your brain for, it was, I believe, 9 minutes or so, there's a concern for what's called anoxic brain injury. So essentially brain damage from lack of blood flow. And that's the concern. So the fact that he's communicating is just an absolutely fantastic sign. So I think everyone out there is pulling for him, and it's great to see some of those early positive signs.
And you mentioned it too, and I know there's been some people like, well, the hit didn't look that bad, and it doesn't. But like you mentioned, it was just that perfect timing. Really, I mean, bad timing in this passage, but it was just that timing matched up.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So, I mean, most commonly this happens in actually ball sports, so baseball, softball, where an athlete takes a hit directly to the chest. So, and often it's in unfortunately, younger patients as well. So take a line drive to the chest, and again, it hits right at the heart, right at the wrong time. And I'd have to look it up again, but it has to be, I think, within like a millisecond. Like there's this enormously small window, and it has to hit just in the right spot, just at that right time. And that's why it's so rare. I mean, anyone who plays sports, think how many times you've been hit in the chest. I mean, thank goodness our heart doesn't stop
right
every time we get hit in the chest, right? So it's just one of those things that was kind of flukish. And there's probably gonna be some knee-jerk reactions about people having to wear extra chest pads and things like that. I mean, I'm not saying that we don't want to take precautions, but it is such a rare event that those kind of things, in order to stop one thing happening, you'd have to have so many interventions. It just probably doesn't make a lot of sense. I think this is just one of those kind of fluke things.
Because I correct me if I'm wrong, did I see some people kind of talk about this as maybe a little bit more common in a sport like baseball, with a baseball hit in the chest and that?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Dr. Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, joining us for a little inside the training room. One of the things we've been hearing about is his lungs trying to recover here. So would that be part of the CPR, or is that just part of the whole thing where, with the breathing thing, because, you talk about a cardiac event that they keep saying, what would be the reason why his lungs would have to be healing? And that's one of the things they're kind of waiting on or trying to improve right now.
My suspicion is the CPR. Yeah. I mean, if you're doing CPR, they kind of teach you when you're learning it, that if you're not pushing hard enough to dang near crack the ribs, you're not pushing hard enough, because you're literally trying to squeeze the ribs and literally squeeze the heart. And so your ribs are meant to protect your lung and your heart. So they're firm and rigid. And so you have to push really hard. So my suspicion, it is related to the CPR. Certainly having lack of perfusion, you could get a little bit of an anoxic injury, I suppose, but I think it's likely predominantly related to the CPR. And so I know that they've been saying that's one of the big things why he's remaining intubated with a breathing tube, and then partially sedated as well. So hopefully that bounces back, because if that's that, it's simply like a pulmonary contusion that should bounce back well.
Right. Yeah, man. But continue. I know everybody's still wanting like updates and that, but yesterday with that presser and listening to the doctors, you have to, I mean, that was a really positive, I don't know if you got a chance to listen to it or hear some of the comments, but it just oozed positivity, which I think everybody kind of needed at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't see the actual release. I saw just kind of clippings of it, if you will. And again, the big thing we were looking for is signs of neurologic function. So can he communicate? Can he respond? I mean, that's the basic thing, is does a person respond to stimulus? Like you'll literally like squeeze their toe and see if they flinch from it, right? You're trying to see if the body's even awake in there. And so to see that they may actually communicate. And then of course, it's almost comical. His first question is, did we win the game? I mean, that just that tells you these guys live and breathe football. That's for darn sure.
Exactly. So I wanted to ask you one question outside of Damara Hamlin here. So kind of basketball wise, Chris Middleton for the Bucks, he's been missing some time, but they keep saying it's knee soreness. And if you remember last year, he was battling, some knee injuries here, and he's only played a handful of games because he was coming back from wrist surgery. But, he hasn't played a whole lot this year, but they keep saying it's a knee soreness. It's a knee issue. I know we've kind of talked about it off and on here. Could that be like, like a tendonitis or anything like that? Or what could be that? It's a very open open-ended kind of designation with knee soreness, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, it is. I mean, certainly that's what you hope is a tendonitis. Because, I mean, clearly at this point it's a chronic kind of thing, right? This wasn't an acute injury. And so you're looking at more of a problem that's causing some kind of itis, right? So inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing you would hope would be something like a patellar tendonitis, a quad tendonitis, hamstring tendonitis. Those are things that can certainly nag. And obviously these guys that are out there, playing in the NBA, they're explosive athletes. And so a simple tendonitis, although it doesn't sound like much, they can be much more debilitating than people give them credit for. So certainly that's the thought and the hope. Now, the other concern is that with these athletes as well is more of the articular injury side of things, where these guys, whether it's from a previous injury or just kind of wear and tear, they develop some damage to the cartilage surfaces, and then they get kind of swelling on the knee. That's when you start seeing athletes that are, getting, these injections, stem cell injections, these different treatment plans. And they really have been tight-lipped about it, which, to be blunt with you, makes me think it is a little bit more along the more concerning side, because often they will come out and say, oh, it's a patellar tendonitis or quad tendonitis. And you often see that designation, where this has been much more this vague knee soreness. And he's missed quite a bit of time from this. So, it's not just a simple, like, one game rest kind of quote unquote load management. Again, it is conjecture, absolutely. But of course, the longer it is and the more they're nebulous about it, the more you can be concerned it's something more serious, frankly.
And then final one here for you, going to your team, Vikings. Brian O'Neill, he suffered a partially torn Achilles. So we've talked about Achilles injuries and we've talked about tears, but with a partially torn Achilles, how is that a little bit different in terms of recovery and maybe repair as compared to a fully torn Achilles?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty uncommon. So generally speaking, the Achilles, when it goes, right? So we can harken back to, when Kevin Durant, he had that really, good or bad, depending on how you like it, video where you saw his Achilles just go pop, right? You saw the muscle recoil.
I just shivered.
That's generally, yeah, exactly. That's generally how it happens. I mean, people will come to clinic and say, I thought someone kicked me in the back of the leg, or I thought someone shot me. It's a very violent, dramatic event. To have a partial, it's atypical. So that's good, because it means some of the fibers, of course, are still intact. So clearly it was enough where they thought they needed surgery, because he underwent surgery to repair it, which unfortunately he's done for the year. But it hopefully will be the fact that he has internal fibers that are still there. So it's like an internal brace. So it is going to heal better, more predictably, and potentially be able to accelerate the rehab protocol. But partial could mean 10%, partial could be 90%, right? We don't know how many fibers are still intact, but again, it was certainly weird to see they called it, that quote unquote partial injury. So it'll be interesting to see how he recovers and plays. But I mean, a lot of those guys are able to get back and go full go, or get darn close to it. And certainly that would be the hope that he'd get back, or at least my hope, maybe not yours, that he gets back and he's full go when it all is said and done.
I know we talk about, with Green Bay and the foot doctor over there. I'm blanking on his name right now, the specialist.
Bob Anderson.
Yes, Bob Anderson. But, when you go over to the Twin Cities and you look at their practice facility, the big orthopedic thing, do the Vikings have, a lot of orthopedic stuff on site over there with kind of maybe similar a little bit to Green Bay?
Yeah, I mean, every team is going to have that. Right now, I mean, it's actually, the interesting part is those teams are usually paid by those entities. So in the case of Minnesota, it's Twin Cities Orthopedics. I think it's Titletown,
yep.
Which is part of Bell and Health over in Green Bay. So those companies are paying to be the team physician. Now those physicians are taking care of it and doing a great job. So I'm not saying they're not qualified. They certainly are. But it's a unique setup. So often they will have on campus, they'll have a clinic right next to it, or actually in the facility. So I believe Twin Cities Orthopedics over in that Eagan campus does actually have a clinic, maybe even a surgery center right there. So they definitely kind of weave it in, and it's part of their marketing, part of their branding. But if you've been to a Vikings game or watched it, I mean, their TCO, it comes out of their mouth every other sentence. So it's the Twin Cities Orthopedics injury report. Someone gets injured, Twin Cities Orthopedics, this, that. So it is a big part of it. And so it's there, but the team doctors are part of that. So Chris Larson is the team physician for the Minnesota Vikings. And so he is part of that Twin Cities Orthopedics. So those do go hand in hand. So they will have those right there. But, like we talked about in the past, a lot of times these athletes, when they get injured, they will go and seek specialists around the country. And ironically, sometimes even if your doc is the best specialist, there's this weird thing where they want to go outside their organization because they feel like that they're somehow in cahoots or something, even though the physicians, despite being the quote unquote team doctor, are independent. But a lot of times they'll bounce around, get multiple opinions. But, when you're talking about an athlete who's getting paid $20-30 million a year, getting a second and third opinion probably doesn't seem too crazy, I suppose.
Absolutely. Austin, the last thing I was going to ask you too, because I've seen, kind of going back to DeMar Hamlin here, a lot of people kind of saying, you know what, maybe I should take a CPR class or something like that because of, what we see. You're certified in that. For anybody kind of maybe wondering the same thing, is it, can you kind of give us a little bit of a background in how like the course kind of goes for CPR a little bit?
Yeah. So the American Red Cross runs CPR courses, and so they'll call it basic life support, and that's something anyone can do. And certainly, it would be. I would encourage everyone to do it. Right? I mean, you find yourself in emergency situations, whether you learn how to handle someone choking, someone who's found down, CPR, applying and using an AED device. Those are all absolutely things that every person could and should know. Now, is every single person going to be basic life support trained? No, but the more people you get out there, because if someone goes down, all you need is one person who knows what to do. And I mean, a couple little pieces of advice: if you find someone, the absolute first thing to do right away is call 911, get the paramedics on their way. And then again, if you have basic life support, you can try do things such as CPR or apply an AED device. And absolutely, you can save a life. You don't need to be a physician to save a life. And so those are kind of things that I would encourage everyone to do. And it can be, again, little steps that can make a big difference in someone's life.
Absolutely. Austin, hey, appreciate the time as always, buddy. I love chatting with you. Best of, I guess you're in the playoffs. You don't need best of luck this weekend. So you're good. You're good. So, but have a good weekend, and we'll chat with you again next week. Okay, sir?
Sounds great. Take care.
You got it. There you go. There's Dr. Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine for our Inside the Training Room. Really quick break, then we'll bring Brandon on here after this. Literally quick break. Again, big thanks to Dr. Crow from Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. If you missed any part of that conversation, we'll put it up in our episode of the Man Cave podcast. That'll drop a little bit later on, and Brandon's going to be on there too. He already knows what we're talking about, but we're not going to tell you. We're going to leave it a little bit.
It's very interesting. I will say that when you mentioned the topic, I was like, ooh, and then I had what I consider to be a pretty unique and interesting story that you're going to probably want to hear.
Awesome. So make sure you're checking that out later on. Man Cave podcast brought to you by Toyson Ford and our good friends at Hy-Vee as well. So it's been a couple weeks, Brandon.
It has. Last time we were here was Festivus, and obviously that was just a different vibe.
Yep, exactly. Holidays are over with now, and kind of back in the swing of things on the prep side here a little bit too.
Yep, we are on to January to paraphrase Bill Belichick.
Yeah. So you were I saw you were somewhere wrestling. It was last night,
yes,
right?
I was in Colfax last night.
Yeah.
There was a Cloverbelt Wrestling quad with Bloomer Colfax hosting, Stanley Boyd, McDonald, and Neilsville Greenwood Loyal.
Wow, that's quite the many teams there for
exactly. Well, why do you think I was there?
Yeah, exactly. So,
but yeah, I mean, now we're really once you get to January, there's some big wrestling tournaments in December, but really once you hit January, it kind of kicks up a notch because we're not that far away from the postseason for wrestling already.
Yeah,
I think like maybe that second weekend of February, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Because by the end of February, you've got people packing the Kohl Center for state.
That's right. It's gonna come by fast.
It does. Wrestling comes and goes so quick.
Yeah.
Because
I feel like we just got done with the North one.
Yeah, I mean that was a month ago almost already. Yeah, that's grown to be such a such a cool event, such a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then over the break, you have a couple different big events. You have the Northern Balls. You have the Bi-State Classic, which goes to Oshkosh for the Oshkosh Lourdes on the Water tournament. So there's a bunch of really big. UW Eau Claire hosts one in the area we're at too. So, but winter's always so weird like that because you get going and then you kind of slow down for the break and then you get going again.
Right. And I know maybe kind of even before the break, you had the weather.
Mother Nature had us kind of stopping a little bit too.
Yeah.
So it's ramping right back up. So hopefully Mother Nature cooperates and we're really able to kind of start, ripping off because business is picking up. We're kind of starting to see contenders emerge. Emerge really counts.
I know you were able to catch some hockey the other night too.
Bested by New Richmond. Both those teams are state ranked. Chai came into this week ranked second in Division I, and New Richmond was actually second in Division II in the Wisconsin Prep Hockey online poll. So, and I want to say there's like at least four Big Rivers teams that are ranked. Memorial in D1, and I believe New Richmond D2. But I think you can make a good case that
because it's consistent, right?
Yeah, it's that way every year. I mean, we know that Hudson and Memorial are always good. Chippewa has really kind of emerged as another. North has certainly had its run, made state a few years ago with Sam Stat to make a run. That's just there's a lot of things a few years ago. Eau Claire is at state. We've seen St. Croix Valley there, Hudson. They're just
where you got that, and then obviously, especially around here, it's baseball in the spring.
Baseball, and then I plant the flag for softball for Chippewa County with Chahai, McDonald, and Bloomer, and Thorpe and Gilman. Yep. In recent years, so
even hockey too with the UW Eau Claire, they're always.
It's people of hockey around here.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of good hockey to see. So
and the steel too.
Exactly. So you've got. If you like hockey and you want to get out and watch games, you got options.
Yep, definitely. How does the for boys and girls basketball season kind of?
That's another thing that now we're kind of starting to get close in on the midway point. In the Western Cloverbelt for girls, Cadott and McDowell have a monster matchup coming up on Tuesday. They're both still unbeaten in conference play. Cadott's still unbeaten overall. Moved into the WIS Sports D4 State Division 4 state poll. I want to say probably for the first time ever. I don't believe they were at any point last year, but I feel pretty confident saying that that's probably the first time they've ever been ranked. But that's a really explosive Cadott team. They can put up points. They play up tempo. They're athletic. They just do a lot of things well. And I can already say I'm going to be at that matchup Tuesday, and I'm really looking forward to that matchup because those are two really good teams, and kind of curious to see how they match up with each other. Otherwise, on the boys' side, you've got Fall Creek and McDonald still. It's next Thursday, but it's coming up here pretty quick for their first meeting. Fall Creek's won the last two conference titles. Their only loss so far is to Prescott, who's a D3 state ranked team. McDonald's unbeaten. Made some headlines over the break with Eddie Mittermeier scored 52 points in one of their games at the Denny Laramie Holiday Classic. So, but that's a McDonald team that's really kind of bounced back to becoming, once again, one of the top teams in the area after a bit of a down year last year. And, it's something to say it was a down year where they knocked off the 1 seed in their section and, made the regional finals.
Right.
But, that's a team that really kind of took that to heart because that was the first time finals or further. And those players on that team really took that to heart and say, hey, we don't want this to happen again. So they put in a ton of time in the offseason, and they're really seeing it pay off. On the boys' side in the Big Rivers, right now Chippewa Falls, at the top of the conference, still unbeaten in league play.
Wow.
and that's from a team that won, I think, 4 or 5 games last year. It's a really big step
I was
up.
going to say that.
But that's, I mean, I would say in some ways it's similar to McDonald in that you had a bunch of kids. I think I kind of understood the opportunity they had, because last year they were so junior and sophomore heavy that, they put in the work in the off season. Mason Minarski and Kansas Smith have been around them. Jackson Tomczak's had some big games as a 6'6" senior. Tonight they play New Richmond. Both the boys and the girls do. So that's where I'll be set up for a rare Big Rivers doubleheader.
Nice.
So, but yeah, that's kind of the case with them there. On the girls' side, Hudson is, they're a team that was at state a couple of years ago, and this year they're good again. They're kind of leading the pack there, but there's some good teams behind them.
Nice, wow. So, and then we got swimming going on as well.
Swimming
too.
is fully underway, and
gymnastics I know is going on too. So
yeah, we're full speed ahead, and
nice. Hey,
I think you've already got coaches kind of, plotting the course to the playoffs, especially in a sport like swimming, where it's all about kind of, tapering and being at your best physically at the right time. You kind of work backwards.
Right. Awesome. So blue gold stuff. Hey, we got a big weekend actually starts tonight too, or this morning. Wrestling's at Louisville, Kentucky for the NWCA National Duels. Men's hockey's taking on St. Olaf at Hobbs tonight. Women's hockey is going to be at St. Norbert. Then tomorrow, women's hockey going to be at St. Norbert. We got men's hockey going to be at Hobbs against St. Mary's again. Men's basketball is going to be at Whitewater at 5, and then the women's team will be taking on Whitewater. You'll be able to hear that game tomorrow night right here on 105.1 FM and 790 AM. So there's some of your blue gold notes right there too. Before we take another break here, Brandon, I want to talk a little Brewers with you.
Do you have a button to push to sound a horn for the Brewers signing an actual legitimate major league free agent?
Free agent.
Last team to do it.
Last team to do it, man. And it was a familiar face.
It was.
Wade Miley. So it's a starter again, but you look at it, and some of these pitchers, and then they got Bryce Wilson too in a trade too. But you look at some of the pitchers that they've acquired, and Alex Claudio's coming back there too. So really throwing it back, I guess.
The band is back together.
Yeah, Lauer and Ashby. It seems like they're collecting pitchers that have experience starting and coming out of the bullpen. Is that by design, you think, to give them some flexibility there?
Could be. I also think that's probably the type of pitchers that are available at their price point. And don't get me wrong, I really like the Wade Miley signing, because he's someone that even since he left Milwaukee, he still pitched well.
Yeah, Houston was his.
He was injured last year, but he still pitched well in Chicago. He had a really good year a couple years ago with the Reds. And he's a guy that, he's completely different, successful with it. And really, a lot of his peripherals are pretty similar to, that, I want to say a breakthrough year, 2018. Like, what are you bringing this guy in for? Like, looking at his career numbers, you're like, well, what's he going to provide? But
he was with Baltimore before.
Yeah,
right?
he reinvented himself. And I think the big thing there is, Wade Miley's not a guy that you're expecting is going to go out there and give you 200 innings. That's not a realistic expectation. But he's a guy you can put at the back of your rotation that's a veteran that knows how to get guys out and is still very effective. And plus, it gives you the opportunity, as you said, to kind of mix and match maybe a little bit the rest of the way. As far as, depending on what happens with the bullpen, maybe you can afford to move an Adrian Hauser to the bullpen. Where I would honestly like to see him go, because I think you can kind of control the matchups a little bit more. Not maybe face so many left-handed heavy lineups. Aaron Ashby's someone that could play up in that spot, but I do think they still want to see what he can do as in the rotation, because he's got as good a stuff as anybody. I mean, I would put his pure stuff up against Woodruff and Burns. He just has to learn how to pitch with it, and that was a process for those guys too. So, and you mentioned Eric Lauer as well. I mean, is it something where maybe Lauer or Hauser get moved for a bat? They have that depth is there. That option's there too. There's just a lot of options, a lot of places they can go from here.
Somebody, so feeding off that, because we had a text, Brewers maybe moving one of their top pitchers like Burns or Woodruff for a big impact bat at that
I guess
point.
that's always possible, but I honestly see it as maybe more of a sign that they may be willing to move like a Hauser or a Lauer, something of note. And yet you look at your rotation and you still Hauser there, you can Ashby, and then still some other, even a couple of guys they got in the Hunter Renfroe trade. Jansen Junk, who could be a starter, could be a reliever, like of kind of viable options. And you need that out of starting pitchers, because inevitably you're going to have injuries. You're going to have something happen where you're missing a guy for part of a year.
Right.
So you need to be ready for that. And maybe that was a place that they kind of felt like might have let them down a little bit last year,
Mhm.
and they're kind of able to bring back a familiar face, someone that they know is good in the clubhouse for a pretty cheap deal. I mean that team option the next year. Let's put it this way: if the Brewers pick up that option, Wade Miley had a great year because I think it was like $10 million.
Yeah.
Which if they end up picking that up in 2024, chances are there's a reason for it.
Right. Exactly. I want to throw out a thought I had, and this could be just based purely off of rose-colored glasses, too optimistic. But we were kind of joking about, okay, they finally signed a free agent, they finally spent some money, and all we've been hearing the sound clips is like, hey, we're still competing for the playoffs, we're still competing for a World Series, yet they're not like signing anybody. Could it be possible that maybe they're trying to sign one of their starters to a long-term deal?
Could be.
And saving some of that money for that?
Could be, because I actually looked it up yesterday, and I think Spotrac had them as right now projected to be about $115 million for and that's including arbitration estimates for all the guys that are arbitration eligible. Which,
or maybe even Willie Adames with a long-term
or,
extension.
maybe one of those kind of quote unquote big three between Burns, Woodruff, and Adames. I mean, Willie Adames has got to be loving what he's seen out of the shortstop market this offseason.
No kidding, man.
Because he's comparable to a guy like a Dansby Swanson. I mean, he's not Carlos Correa, who knows if he'll ever sign anywhere. He's he's not one of those top tier guys, but he's still very good. And that's possible because and I believe the peak for the Brewers as far as their budget went, I think it was like 130. I don't know if that was last year. At one point it was. So using that as a frame of reference, you feel like they still got some moves to maybe make one more, big move, and then maybe leave a little wiggle room if you want to make a move at the deadline. But, for me, I would still like to see them add one bat.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a third baseman, so you can move Arias to second. Maybe it's a second baseman, you keep Arias at third. Maybe it's a right fielder. Maybe it's a guy like AJ Pollock, who had a bit of a down year last year, but still, has good numbers in his career, hits lefties well. Could be a guy that plays right field for you, especially against lefties. Because right now you're kind of banking on Tyrone Taylor, and he's been good in spurts, but he's just been very up and down. And I think it's at some point you kind of know what you got with him, which is a good reserve outfielder, but maybe a guy that's a bit stretched, getting a bunch of at bats. But we'll see. I mean, the Brewers have always kind of operated in silence, so to speak, and maybe they got one. They got one more in them.
You mentioned we were talking about bringing the band back together. Mike Moustakas, third base. Would that be kind of similar to your reaction when they signed last year? I just blanked on him. The former MVP.
McCutchen,
thank you.
That's a little different because I think McCutchen at that point was still better. I mean, Moustakas really hasn't been good since he left Milwaukee.
Yeah, he hasn't had double-digit home runs.
No, and it's just McCutchen, at least you could kind of squint and still see how he could be successful, and you wouldn't pay. I mean, at this point, if the Brewers offered him an invite to spring training kind of a thing, where maybe he can make the team as a non-roster invitee, I guess I wouldn't be upset because there's no harm in that. But given the guys that they already have, I think I'd rather see them go with them, if not just like a more legitimate second baseman or a third baseman. But that's something certainly people are going to talk about.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like that would be one where you remember. If I had a second, I could look it up. But like the year the Brewers brought back Yvonne Gallardo, like way at the end of his career, to me it would be kind of like that. Where
because he didn't even make it to the big league roster.
No, or like a Chris. I think they did the same thing with Chris Capuano. Like they've done it before with people, and that happens with a lot of teams where you bring back, an old face at the kind of at the end of their career. But at this point, I just don't know. Like it would be fun to go moose during a random spring training game. But I don't know. Like if he was still a productive player, he'd still be in Cincinnati.
I totally forgot he hit 35 home runs his final year in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean there's a reason he got a $64 million contract from the Reds. Like he was productive when he was productive when he was in Milwaukee. But because 2019 was that year that both him and Grandal came aboard. Kind of like I think it was in February, where they both kind of signed late in the going.
Right.
And that's kind of been when the Brewers have made kind of those big free agent splashes. That's kind of when they've done it, is kind of looking at the free agent market and basically waiting to offer somebody a 1-year high value contract.
Right. And I was looking at some of the available guys out there right now, and it's
And there's not too
yeah.
much bat wise. Like
Yeah.
there isn't that guy that's lingering.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the spot that they need.
Right. And I don't know, like, I mean, it's hard to value, like, try to figure out trades or something
Oh
like that
no,
too.
yeah, it's always tough. Like different people have different ways to try to do it, but you never know. Like,
right.
there's no way that anyone would have expected that. Hey, the Brewers can give up, Asturi Ruiz and get William Contreras. Which,
Mhm.
by the way, apparently, I'd seen yesterday that William Contreras had changed like his profile picture on the social media to him in a Brewers outfit, so Brewers fans can stop being worried.
What were they worried
Well,
about?
because his reaction when they got traded was was rightfully. I mean, he was upset. I mean, I
Yeah.
had no issue with that because the Braves is the only organization he ever knew, and some people were worried because like, well, he hasn't really necessarily said like, oh hey, but I'm really excited to get going to Milwaukee. It's like, well, sometimes that thing takes time. Which I mean,
And Luke, I mean, let's face it, Braves have had a little bit more success the last couple of
exactly.
years.
So he probably wanted to stay,
Yeah.
but it's probably just took him a little time to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
And look, that's why sometimes it's good to make these trades in the offseason instead of right at the trade deadline.
Right.
For his case and for the team's case as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right, good stuff there, B. We're going to take a quick break here, and then I want to throw a little bit more Badgers chat in here before we get to some picks in that, because I know I mentioned it earlier, but in case you're just joining us or just joined in late, Badgers might be picking up another talented transfer portal player.
They are active.
They are very active. So we'll tell you who that is, and then we'll throw in some Bucks chat in there as well. Stick around. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. if you haven't yet, make sure you're heading to sportstalk1051.com and submitting your flavor ideas for our brat and snack sticks.
Yeah.
We're going to do a couple brats. One's going to be made with Man Cave Light, but we're looking for a flavor for the other one, and then obviously a flavor for the snack sticks, partnering up with Mike's Star Market for that. And the best part of it, too, is that sales are going to help Backyard Dreams support that, too. So all you got to do is go to sportstalk1051.com, click on the Nation tab. You'll see that icon there that says help create our brats, and then fill that out. Yes, Brandon.
I'm raising my hand.
Yeah.
So
it's a little DP thing here going on.
So how long until you're able to put together an entire tailgate just based off of like products related to you? Burgers, brats, snack sticks.
That might be the goal for.
You just need like Hy-Vee to come out with like a Dan potato salad.
Oh, don't give me any ideas.
Or they come out with a Brandon potato salad. That's just my mom's potato salad.
That too.
Because my mom's potato salad's awesome.
Can we just call it Brandon's mom's potato salad?
We sure can.
Now we're on to something now, baby. Ooh,
there we go. Now we're cooking with
maybe
gas.
like with like spring training or opening day.
Well, that's kind of one of the next things for us.
Yeah. Because that's before the draft, so
yeah.
Oh, we might be onto something now.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I like it. We're gonna before we finish up this hour here, I want to talk some Badgers because I mean there's still like I feel like every day or every couple days there's something else that's kind of popping, whether it's a new coach coming out to the staff or Luke Fickell or the transfer portal or anything like that. But last night, actually a couple of wide receivers that might be coming over to Wisconsin. One of them, Quincy Burrows, is coming from Cincinnati.
Yeah, he's coming. I think these guys are coming to visit.
Right. He did tweet 8 hours ago, jump around, and he has entered the transfer portal. So, coming to visit. But I mean, Cincinnati going to where Luke.
I think anytime that there's a guy in the portal from Cincinnati, you're going to automatically be like, well, maybe, because I know there's an all conference center as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's out there, and center is a need with Joe Tippmann moving on to the NFL, so we'll see how that goes.
Right. And then the big one is a kid from USC. So whenever you say USC, wide receiver, and Lincoln Riley's over there, and the passing game and such. But he's going to be visiting Wisconsin coming up here as well. CJ Williams, who was a 4-star recruit last year. And was with USC, but he tweeted out that, Madison, see you soon, to which one of their new quarterbacks, Nick Evers,
who's really, he's really, I like that. He's really kind of getting out there and like saying, hey, yeah, come here. Even when Tanner Mordecai committed, like, cause they know each other apparently. I mean, both from Texas, both Texas guys, he was like, if people were wondering, like, well, they're, what are they doing bringing in another quarterback? He was like, no, yeah, love to have you here. Like, he gets the big picture. I like that.
I do too. And he had retweeted CJ Williams and said, let's shock the world, gang. So, I mean, you get that. I mean, it was just literally the other day I was talking to one of our Badger guys, RJ, and I said, is still wide receiver one of those positions that they still need? And then it's like 3 days later, they might have a couple transfer portal guys coming in here right now.
The guys that got coming back, I think you feel good about, but with that style of offense, and then what kind of going to what Phil Longo told media yesterday, like it's not just about having like 3 or 4 receivers. Like they want to be able to, kind of flow these different guys in to keep guys fresh and to just give opportunity and kind of see who rises.
Right. And then they got defensive lineman from he was an all AAC player for Temple, 7.5 sacks, 12.5 tackles for loss, captain for the team as a redshirt freshman, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Darian Varner.
Yeah, and that's someone that we were talking about here. He's a little bit bigger of an edge rusher. I mean, it's going to be kind of interesting. It sounds, for what they do defensively. Obviously, Jim Leonard leaving. In the past, more of a 3-3-5 kind of defense, but it does sound like they're kind of trying to tweak it a little bit to still have some 3-4 principles. But
right.
As an edge rusher was a need with Nick Herbig moving on to the NFL. You've got some other guys there, but no one that had been kind of that that primary option yet. So that's, I mean, and it doesn't matter if you're college or pros, you can never have enough edge rushers.
Yeah, it's just, I think if you're a Badgers fan, we were kind of talking about it off the air. We're getting geeked up. We'll see if it actually, if we get disappointed. But still, it's like, wow.
This is just, it's never before, kind of traversed ground. Like,
and I think you made a great point about the assistants off air. We were talking about that a little bit.
Yeah, where like it's cool that, obviously the Wisconsin paid a bunch of money for Luke Fickell,
Mhm.
but I think it's just as important that they're showing the commitment to pay a bunch of money for assistant coaches.
Mhm.
I mean, we're seeing, the co-defensive coordinator from Minnesota sounds like heading to Wisconsin to coach D-backs, has a relationship with Fickell, but you also have to know he's getting a bump up in pay because two other Gopher coaches looks like they're kind of moving to other Big Ten teams and kind of lateral-ish moves.
Yeah.
So you have to figure, like, I mean, there's all it's always something to be said for opportunity and for coaching with the guy you've coached for and that you have a great relationship for. But the bottom line is all these coaches still want to make sure they're getting paid too.
Right.
And that's a big part of it. That's something that's kind of bit the Badgers a little bit in the past,
Mhm.
is maybe not being able to provide the same package that other teams have, especially financially. And now it looks like they're being able to do that, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And I think you hit it. I think you hit it on the head right there. Now I don't know if we'll ever know the true value of that, but
but it's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, not only from a coaching sense, but recruiting is the other aspect of this
Yeah.
too. Where they got to go out there and but bring in. I'm pumped. I
Yeah.
can't wait. For
Yeah,
this
I'm
to
already,
start.
and that's the thing. Like, I'm already looking forward to the next year. We've still got 8 months to go.
Yeah. Can we get to spring ball? Yeah, just
Yeah,
to get
and that's
something a little
that's
bit.
going to be interesting too, because to see if they do because Paul Chris didn't do a spring game, but
Mhm.
even to do something, some sort of event that people can look at.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's in the vein of like Packers Family Night kind of a thing, where
Right.
you're doing like you're doing stuff that fans can watch and kind of get a little bit of excited about, like just
Mhm.
something because right now there's a buzz, I
Mhm.
think, with Badger football.
Yep.
And a different type of buzz. There's been buzzes in the past for various reasons, but
Right.
I don't think there's ever been more.
Exactly. I mean, they did the renovations to Camp Randall and that, just kind of really get. I know they was it deadline for season ticket pre-buys or something like that was just the other day, but we only got about a minute left too. But if you don't have Twitter, you probably have never noticed it. But Luke Fickell does have a bat signal that you
Yes,
were
he
kind of
does.
talking about.
He has a little like 15-second video. It's the same video, but every time like it sounds like he gets a commitment from somebody, he'll play it, and then it's a sign to everybody like, hey, something's coming up.
Yep.
And people respond to it.
It's they call it the bat signal.
Yep.
So if you don't follow Luke Fickell on Twitter and you have Twitter, you can go there and you can kind of see what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But it's a Wisconsin video. It's
it's just like a
football video.
generic like, hey, get ready, get excited kind of a thing. Basically,
Yep.
kind of vaguely saying, hey, something's coming.
Yep, something's coming for sure. So, yeah, it says Badger fans get ready to jump around. So, and then there's highlights on there.
Yep.
So, I like it. I think everybody's getting pumped up right now. So,
Yep.
which is, I mean, when you make a hire like that, you hope to get the energy
Yes,
back.
especially there were some people that were unsure about the Chris firing and then unsure about Jim Lair not getting the job, but
Mhm.
right now, early in the going, Luke Fickell's done all he can to kind of say,
Absolutely.
hey, this is what we're doing,
Absolutely.
and here's some stuff to get excited about.
Yep, definitely. All right, we only got about a minute left to the top here. So coming up next, we're going to do some picks. Then we got the cream of the crop coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Then the Carpet City Sports Spotlight as well. So we'll get to that, and we'll get back to some more football talk as well, because it is the final week of the regular season. So
Suppose there's some rather important games going on out there.
yeah. So what I'm going to do, Brandon, I'll have the playoff machine up.
Yeah.
So when we make our picks, I'll kind of do it on there. Then we'll automatically see how it works out.
No,
in terms
no
of
fool in the
playoffs,
playoff machine is honestly might be one of my favorite things about ESPN.
I agree. I usually almost do it every day or every other day.
The last few weeks I've gone through, and I haven't done like every single pick, but I'll do like where you can do the criteria.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
it's a really cool.
Especially when there's a lot of tiebreakers involved. It makes
Yes,
it
and you
so
don't
much
know.
easier.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. So we're gonna do that. It's coming up in just a couple minutes. 2 hours in already, flying through on this Football Friday. We'll be back after these news updates. All right, final hour. Just flying on by here on this Football Friday. Missed this a little bit earlier, but Surveyor calling out C-Bomb a little bit from the first hour.
Ooh.
C-Bomb sounds like that guy in high school who tries to ask out the hot girl but lacks all the confidence. Come on, C-Bomb, let's go. Can I get a Ric Flair woo? I can't do it. I'm not going to.
I feel bad that Surveyor might have just described me.
Yeah. I hope C-Bomb was listening to that. So we're going to make some picks right now. We're going to jump into it right now. Final week of the regular season. Again, in case you missed it, we went through it in the first hour, but I'll revisit it here because it does get a little confusing. So they're not playing, or they're not going to restart, or they're not going to play Bengals and Bills. It's canceled. So how they're doing this, and it's not official yet. It's got to be voted on today by the owners. But this was released last night from the NFL. I think the big one, the intriguing one to me is this Bengals and Ravens one, Brandon, because Bengals have won the division. They are crowned the champions. However, they might not host a playoff game. It might come down to a coin flip with this thing, which is got some people kind of scratching their heads. They're like, okay, so they get the division, and theoretically they get a lower draft pick now, possibly, depending on how things work out there a little bit, but they might not host a playoff game. The coin toss would only take place in the event that the Ravens are the 6th seed in the AFC and have a wild card matchup with the Bengals. If Baltimore does move up to the 5th seed, then it's a moot point because they would face the AFC South champion there. It's a little confusing there, but it might come down to a coin flip.
It might.
For that game. And then the AFC championship game is a little bit more confusing here. And I missed one part of it. This is why I want to revisit it again, because I was talking about KC and Buffalo, but Cincinnati could factor into this as well. So there's a chance the AFC championship game could be on a neutral site. If it's Buffalo, okay, so I'm glad Ian Rappaport did this. He retweeted it. NFL Research made a graphic, so it's a little easier to follow here. So if your top 3 seeds are KC, Buffalo, and Cincinnati, and the AFC championship game is Buffalo versus Kansas City, it's a neutral site. If it's Cincinnati versus Kansas City, it's at Kansas City. Kansas City, Buffalo, I'm just kind of going through all this. Let's just put this: Kansas City, Buffalo. It's a neutral site. It's a neutral site. If it's Kansas City versus Cincinnati, if it's Kansas City. See, this is why it's so confusing. Kansas City Kansas City is the 1 seed. Cincinnati is the 2 seed. But Buffalo versus Kansas City. Anyways, Tom Pelissero does a better job. That graph is screwing me up, Brandon. I'm sounding like C-Bomb from the first hour here a little bit, for crying out loud. So this is how Tom Pelissero broke it down. If the Chiefs lose and the Bills win, Buffalo is the 1 seed. Okay. If the Chiefs win and the Bills lose, Kansas City is the 1 seed. Those teams would host the AFC championship game then. If the Chiefs lose and the Bills win, Buffalo is the 1. They get the AFC championship game if they make it. If the Chiefs win and the Bills lose, Kansas City is the 1 seed, championship game in Kansas City. Where it gets confusing then is if the Chiefs and the Bills both win and then meet in the AFC championship game, it would be at a neutral site. There.
And if no winner can be established, a 2-man sack race will be held on alternate weekends until a champion can be crowned.
The graph is a little confusing to me from Ian Rappaport because he's got it where Cincinnati's the 2 seed, but yet it's still it all depends on Kansas City versus Buffalo in that instance for the AFC championship game. So that's where it's kind of confusing at that point. But I get what they're doing. Cincinnati could still be the 2 seed technically. But I think it's safe. Well, I guess we'll find out on picks.
Yeah.
But
we'll
kind
Which, by the way, have you given people an update on the Sports Talk Football Challenges we go into last week?
No, I haven't even made my picks. I figured I'm out of it. So
Well,
That's kinda what I
you're
did with
tied
the-
for 6th.
Oh, okay, I guess there's a chance.
We got a 3-way tie at the top with Scotty Zoe, Joseph Hasmer, and Timothy Blizik.
Okay, because I gave up on fantasy football. I don't know. I checked it. The
I
other
did
day.
notice that because I think we played in the consolation of
Let's
women.
just put it this way, Brandon. There was 3 leagues. I won toilet bowl in all 3.
Hey, you're nothing if not consistent.
Oh man! So
But we got a good race coming down to the final week.
this is why I don't play fantasy football a lot, because halfway through I forget about it, and then like a week or two that you screw up, you're just screwed up anyways.
You're telling me that you were more invested the last few weeks in the Packers getting back into the playoff race than you were about your 3 teams working in the consolation brackets.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon, look, you give me crap for that all the
I
time.
do. You haven't filled out the your Packer schedule here ever since the win over Dallas.
Yeah, I have not filled it out, and I'm not going to now, because let's see how it rides. Let's ride. Let's ride, man. So, if I'm not anything, I'm consistent.
There you go. If you can be
So-
one thing, be consistent.
Yep. So, I guess I got to make picks and try to crack that leaderboard top 5.
You got some work to do.
What was that supposed to mean?
You and Luke are like 7 games back.
Well, you know what? Maybe somebody will forget.
Possible. This is why I make mine like a month in advance and then still sometimes forget. Like if I lose by like 1 game and it's because I forgot to pick like 3 Thursday night games, I'll be a little mad at myself.
Yeah.
Just a little
So,
bit though.
I didn't forget to set my lineup. Somebody texted. I literally just didn't do it.
It just was the same one.
Yeah, I just didn't do it. That's why I said I gave up the last few weeks. I didn't care anymore after that. That's why I don't play it a whole lot. So,
All right.
let's go with the ready to do some picks?
I am.
Okay, I got the playoff machines lined up here. Let's go Kansas City. I got 2 windows open, so just in case we're different. Kansas City at, I was going to say Oakland again, Las Vegas.
Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm going Kansas City on this one too.
Raiders gave the 49ers all they could handle last week, but I don't know if they can do it again.
Mm-hmm. Tennessee at Jacksonville for the AFC South.
I'm going with the fighting Tony Khans. It's Jacksonville Jaguars.
I'm going Jaguars too. Give Doug
They're-
Peterson some love.
Yeah,
right
they've
now.
come alive. Trevor Lawrence, like amazing what happens when he has a legitimate NFL head coach.
right.
Like it's starting to click for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's go with Tampa Bay at Atlanta. Now this is interesting because Tampa Bay can't really improve.
No,
their
they're the
standings,
4th
so-
seed. They're the Dallas and Tampa Bay is that's
well,
a
Giants too.
lot. And the Giants, yes.
Dallas could still
Oh, they can still win the NFC
East depending
yes,
on stuff.
okay.
So it's Giants. And
Yeah,
Tampa.
right now the Giants are the only one locked in as the 6th.
Yep.
But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are locked in as the 4.
How does that working out?
And I think they win. Like
Yeah.
it sounds like this. It does sound like they're going to play their starters.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's not an ugly or it's not a pretty game, but I mean, not many of their wins have been.
Right.
That
would have been really interesting if Carolina would have won though.
Yeah, it would have.
New England at Buffalo. New England right now is the 7th seed, but they got to go to Buffalo, and I'm sure emotions will be high in Buffalo for this. So
I'll take Buffalo.
I'm going to take Buffalo in this game too. So that we'll see how it works out. So we're all the same right now.
Yep.
Minnesota at Chicago. Chicago is not starting Justin Fields, even though he could break the rushing record by a quarterback.
That's big. Like
Mhm.
I would have been. I still would have picked Minnesota either way, but I would have been a little bit more tempted with Chicago. But now with Chicago starting Nathan Peterman, like the Vikings have won 1 game this year by more than 1 possession. It was week 1. If they don't win this one by more than 1 possession going up against Nathan Peterman, that's more of an indictment than any of those losses to the Eagles, the Packers, the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Because this is a game you should win handedly.
Chicago could still get the first overall pick in this draft.
It's them or Houston.
Yeah, and I think we know Chicago's not drafting a quarterback. So part of me is like, okay, if you get that first pick, trade it.
Yeah.
Get some more capital. Because teams are going to be desperate for those.
You're gonna want Bryce Young.
Right. Texans get the first pick, they're drafting a quarterback.
Yep.
So be fascinating to kind of watch that one play out. Baltimore at Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'm going Cincinnati too in this one. No doubt. And then we got the Texans at the Colts. Maybe
This might be the most irrelevant game of the week.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say the Colts, even though I feel like the Texans have been a little better than their really, really bad record.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I'm gonna say Colts. Like this is one you need to win. Like I don't think it gets Jeff Saturday the job, but I think they end on a high note.
I'm gonna go Texans on this one. I'm gonna go Texans on this. which means Chicago would get the first overall pick. Then.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Ooh.
All right. Now this one too. Jets at the Dolphins. Jets are out of it.
Yeah.
Dolphins, is Teddy going to play? Tua's
Tua can't.
No.
No.
Teddy, is he going to play? Is this going to be Skylar Thompson? It's in Miami. Miami wins this. They're probably in at the postseason then?
I am going to take Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I think if Teddy plays, I feel more confident. If Skylar Thompson does, I think they really have to lean on that run game, which isn't easy because the Jets defense is good. But yeah, I'll take the Dolphins by like a field goal.
I'm going to take the Dolphins in this one too. If it was in New York, though, I might take the Jets.
Yeah.
I might take the Jets in that one. Carolina at New Orleans.
I'm going to go Saints.
You're going to go Saints in that one? I'm going to go Carolina. I'm going to say Steve Wilkes makes it a little bit difficult. I don't think he gets the job. But
but he's done everything you can to get it.
Mm-hmm. He's not splashy, and I think Dave Tepper, the owner for the
Patriots,
I
think they kind of went splashy with their last one, and that didn't work.
Yep. So, Browns at the Steelers. I'm going Steelers too in this one. Let's go Giants at Eagles. It already sounds like Giants are going to be resting players.
Yeah, because as we said, they have nothing to gain. They're 6th seed no matter what. So I'm going to take Eagles.
I'm taking the Eagles too, which would solidify them as the 1 seed.
Yes.
But then we get Dallas at Washington. Now remember, the teams that are in competition for that 1 seed are all playing in the afternoon.
Yes, they're in that late window.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take Dallas, and I'm also going to say, Ron Rivera, why did you start Carson Wentz? Like, he might have sealed his own fate with his job. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like, I think
you buy that he didn't know that they could be eliminated?
I don't.
Yeah.
That was like that. That's just a situation where you made your bed. Now you gotta lie in it.
Right.
I'm taking Cowboys.
Do you believe the Taylor Heineke? Did you hear what happened? Like Taylor Heineke apparently went to the coaches and said, "Start Sam Howell over me for this weekend."
Wow.
Which I'm like, okay, and I'm like,
I guess now that
kudos, I guess.
Maybe he figures he's already not gonna be back next year.
Maybe.
And he's like, well, I've done it, because he'll get a backup job somewhere.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, if he did, more power to him.
Yeah.
But I mean, he should have been starting last week.
He should have.
But
Chargers at the Broncos.
Chargers.
I'm going Chargers too, because they could still get 5 or 6, I believe. Right? They could go back and forth there.
I think. It depends.
Yeah, kind of depending on the Baltimore one there too. So, Arizona at San Francisco.
Niners.
Yeah, I'm going Niners there too. I think David Blau is.
Yeah. Former legendary Vikings practice spotter.
Rams at Seattle.
The first of what are going to be 2 good news for Packer fans. I'm taking Seattle.
I'm taking Seattle on there as well. So, okay, you kind of tipped it. You're taking Green Bay?
I will take Green Bay.
I'm going to take Green Bay too. So, this is where I
feel like ours are going to be the exact same because the ones we had different didn't impact the race at all.
They are the same.
I thought so. They didn't.
Yeah.
The ones we had had 0 play on the postseason.
So the way we got it, Brandon, Kansas City will be the 1. Miami will be visiting Buffalo.
Ooh.
We got a couple of division teams going up in the first round. Miami visiting Buffalo, and then Baltimore visiting Cincinnati. And then I think this is a fun one. Chargers visiting Jacksonville.
Yeah, that one could be that could be a fun one.
Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, that draft class.
2 teams led by their offense.
Yep.
That could be a sneaky fun one.
I agree. I like that one. There was and I get circumstances, but it was trending to where we could have maybe seen Miami visiting Kansas City and then the Tyreek Hill, Kansas City.
Yeah, it could have the whole coming home game.
So that's the AFC. NFC, Philadelphia, 1 seed. Really no surprises in this one. Green Bay visiting San Francisco. Giants visiting Minnesota, and then Dallas visiting Tampa, which you probably know will probably be like the Saturday night primetime.
Yeah,
game.
like you had every network that is going to want that Buccaneers Cowboys game. They're going to be fist fighting for that thing.
Exactly. And I think probably Green Bay, San Francisco would be the second one. Aaron Rodgers, second most.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, yes, yep.
The one that
Packers are hot. San Francisco's playing. Yep. Nope.
The history between the two.
I would agree.
So.
I would agree.
I think so. Now the question is going to be, Brandon.
What's the Monday night game?
What's the Monday night game or the first Saturday one? We're going to make those picks right now.
Yep.
So I think the Monday night game is Giants at Minnesota.
So do I.
All right. So
I
we're
do
on
too.
the same page.
We had this conversation a few weeks ago where that's kind of a boring game.
Yeah.
Like for one reason or another, even though their last game they played was a really good one. But we talked about how they could put any game there and it's going to draw.
Yep.
To me, it's either that or it's Jaguars and Chargers.
Yep.
It's one of those two. Minnesota has not played on Monday night since week 2.
Really?
Yes.
I did not realize that we against Philly.
And I don't know about the Giants. So I'm with you. I think that's the Monday night game, which means we get to hear another full week of can Kirk Cousins win in primetime.
Oh, that's right.
So we get.
He's probably really hoping.
I say he's probably crossing his fingers for one of those 2 noon games or a noon game somewhere
in there. Holy moly! So the Saturday afternoon one. It's got to be an AFC one.
It does.
It's got to be an AFC one. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that the caveat to this whole thing though is if Tua's not playing, if he's like declared out, which they probably won't know. But if like we knew ahead of time Tua wasn't playing, I think it's that game.
Yes.
Miami at Buffalo. But we don't. I think it's going to be Chargers at Jacksonville.
Yes. To me, that first game and that last game would be Chargers, Jacksonville, Minnesota, Giants in some combination.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I agree. So we're on the same page with everything at this point, Brandon. So there you go. All right. Those are our picks. Tell you what, let's take a quick break and we'll talk some more football leading into this game. Last call for any key matchups, keys to victory, your predictions as well. We want to hear from you. All right. So hit us up with a text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line, 715-830-1912. We'll take that quick break and we'll be back in just a couple minutes. We got a tweet, Brandon. I don't know if this.
I saw the tweet.
yeah.
And I had heard of something about that before, like when it came out, but it's worth bringing up.
This is so Phil Longo, the new offensive
off-
coordinator for Wisconsin. His significant other, his wife, has Eau Claire connections. Alma mater was UW Eau Claire, graduating in '98. She began her coaching career in '99, 2000, serving as an assistant under Lisa Stone,
The legend.
Yeah, and followed her to Drake University before she arrived at SC. So thank you to
Casey.
Is that Casey? Casey, who tweeted that out. That's good. I like that's a little fun nugget
There
for the
you
day
go.
right there. I like it. So, all right. In 15, 20 minutes, we'll do the cream of the crop and Carpet City sports spotlight on there. So, but again, I like that. I like the fun nuggets.
Yes.
That was a good one. All right. So we made our picks, Brandon. Let's talk a little more with the Packers and Lions. You were fairly confident in your pick right away. So is that, why are you so confident? Do you think this Packers defense can slow down? I mean, the Lions offense is really good. Really
It
good.
is.
But
It
is it because they're outdoors?
I think that helps, but also I think the biggest thing for this Packers defense is they're getting turnovers.
Yeah.
Like, you don't necessarily have to shut someone down, and Green Bay shut down Minnesota, but you don't necessarily have to do that if you grab 3 turnovers.
Mhm.
That's kind of what happened with Miami.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of their recipe right now. And I just think that's something they can do. They can grab a couple turnovers, even though Jared Goff has really operated this Ben Johnson offense well. He's doing a good job of getting the ball where it needs to go, and they're
Definitely Ben Johnson's going to get some head coaching interviews,
Yes.
I think.
But I still think this offense or defense can do enough. And really, it's been the defense that's driven this comeback. Like, the Packers offense has improved, but it's still not, I don't think, like, super scary to teams.
Mm-hmm.
It's better, but to me, the biggest difference is the defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know some people say, well, the turnovers against Miami, was that more them or Tua or whatever?
Yeah.
I mean, they still made turnovers.
Yep. And they came back and did it again against Minnesota. So,
we were talking about the other day, what's the biggest factor in your opinion in determining a Packers win? And it was about 50-50, honestly, about turnovers and time of possession. And I was kind of looking at it this morning. During this run with Detroit, the only 2 times they never led in time of possession was their 2 losses, Buffalo and Carolina. And then the one outlier in that was the Green Bay game, though, too, because Green Bay had the time of possession. But if you remember how that game went.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers isn't throwing 3 picks in the red zone again.
Yeah, exactly. So, knock on wood, that is not going to happen there. So that was the weird one that was out there. But I think and then, the other day, too, I was looking at Green Bay, same thing. The games they were winning, time of possession. I think that plays into defense by keeping Detroit's offense off the field, because having those 6-7 minute long drives.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Green Bay also has to do a better job at making sure coming away with touchdowns instead of field goals. Nothing against Mason Crosby.
No, but that's how you win games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it's hand in hand, the time of possession and turnover battle, because it limits the amount of possessions the other teams. And I think you can say, I don't want to speak because I know we've got some Lions fans out there. Shout out Tom across the pond. But they're probably got the same thinking of like keys to victory for them too, right? Turning the ball, getting turnovers from Green Bay, and owning the time of possession.
Yeah, they're probably both coming into this kind of with similar ideas of what they want to do.
Right. Establishing the run.
Yeah, because with Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift has started to come on here these last few weeks. Like,
yep.
I mean, they would love nothing more than to be able to do that.
Yeah, Aaron Jones. You look at the previous game, Aaron Jones only had 11 carries, or 9 carries for 20-some yards. Aaron Rodgers was the leading rusher in that game. Well, you're not going to. It's not Aaron Rodgers from 2010, where he's running the ball a little bit more with some success and such.
He's had to pick his spots a little more.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the confidence level there is there for Green. Like during that game when they kept like Tony Romo and Jim Nance, Green Bay's hot. If they get to the postseason, they're gonna be hot. And I'm like, just don't overlook Detroit. What are we doing here? Detroit still can be in this thing. Their offense is legit.
I want to ask you a question because I don't remember. In 2010, when the Packers made the playoffs, at the end of the year, what was the vibe going into it, like from fans? Because now there's some legitimate buzz, like, hey, this, hey, this team could do something.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the case in 2010? Because I don't remember. Plus, as a Viking fan, I try to just blot all of 2010 out of my head.
I think there was a little bit, and I think a lot of it because if you remember, like the NFC top teams,
Well, they weren't very
Chicago
good.
was the 2 seed.
And Atlanta was the
Atlanta
one.
was the
Like,
one.
yeah, there was nobody you looked at and were like, ooh, like they're
Yeah,
good. Like,
like
now when you look at like Philly and San Francisco, like, man, you're gonna have to play really well.
Well, even Dallas,
And even Dallas,
you know,
yes.
to an extent there too. So, you know, when you looked at and you know Green Bay beat, I think they beat Philly in that first round, but they also beat Philly earlier in the season.
Mhm.
Although that was Kevin Cobb at quarterback. If you
Yeah, it
remember
was
the
different.
great Kevin Cobb, and that was Michael Vick, and in this one, I think there was a little more confidence to it.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was my most memorable season. I was at the last 2 regular season games for that. Like, you know, it was like that. I remember watching that Patriots game, and they were so close. Everybody remembers it from the return, but they
Yeah.
almost won that freaking game, and maybe they win without that return.
Mhm.
And then they just dominated the Giants in Week 16, and then they squeak out a 10-3 victory against the Chicago Bears in the final one. And I think there was some confidence. There was some nerves. I remember watching that Atlanta game. We had people over. I was in Rapids at that time. And I think there was like an anxious nervousness. And at the beginning, I mean, it was going back and forth, back and forth. But then as soon as that game started to kind of get out of reach, I think that confidence was like, oh, yeah, we're going to do this.
This could happen.
Because nobody was afraid of Chicago.
No.
Nobody was afraid of Chicago.
Nope.
I'm not trying to be a dick about it or anything.
No,
but
no,
it was
but
just,
they had a good defense.
Yep.
But and they had Jay Cutler, who was, I mean, a good but not a
Mhm.
great quarterback.
right. So I think there was maybe a little bit more, although everybody, you know, I'd say like nationally wise, there's maybe a little bit more optimism from Green Bay this year.
Yes.
But maybe just everybody's, you know, because I think a lot of Packers fans, oh, we got to play San Francisco. That's the thing. It's like it's kind of been the bugaboo when it's come to the postseason for Green Bay. And then the other part of me is like, well, Brock Purdy's got to come down at some point, right? You know, I mean, come on now.
You
You
think
got to
so?
come down at some point here.
You think so?
But I feel like if they get by San Francisco, then
It's wide open.
there's something here.
Yeah.
Because
'Cause
if
then
they get by San Francisco, they'll have to play Philly.
Yeah, assuming everything goes the way we picked it to do.
Right. Yep. Yeah. If Philly's the 1 seed, Green Bay wins, they're going to Philly no matter what
Mhm.
because they're the lowest seed. Which, I mean, you go from San Fran to Philly, that's
That's tough.
that's
Well,
tough.
you win you find a way to win those, so you would have darn sure earned it.
Yeah. You know, I was trying to look up at comparisons for teams, kind of maybe in a similar spot to Green Bay if they were to make a run. You could go with that Green Bay 2010 one, but I'm kind of like, because even like that year for Green Bay, their losses were really close. You know, it was that Miami last second field goal.
Yeah, they had
It was
a couple.
that-
Didn't they have a couple games they lost on last second field goals?
Yeah, and that was Washington, I think.
Yeah, this year they were more ugly ones. I think.
Yeah, and then they beat the Jets 9-0 in that, you know, defensive battle sort of thing. So, I mean, there was just some weird losses into that.
Okay.
So I think they went in the season with high expectations, and then there was a lot of injuries and all that sort of stuff. But, but anyways, I was looking at teams that were kind of like on a similar path. The only I'm like, well, Cardinals, when they went to the Super Bowl against the Steelers, kind of similar, maybe a little bit. But that playoffs, remember NFC Championship game was in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia was like the 4th seed. That was a weird NFC playoff. That's when Atlanta, I think, was a top seed again or 2 seed, or I don't know, but top seeds were losing again, obviously. So it was just another weird one.
Yeah, because
Giants
Philly
and-
beat Minnesota, didn't they?
Yes,
'Cause
I think so.
Tavares,
Yep.
that was the year before Favre. That was Tavares Jackson.
That's right. Yep, that's right. So, and you know, I know it's going to happen. I've already seen some of it, but you know, there's people like, well, you know, if they say they lose Sunday or they lose in the first round of the postseason, there's going to be people that are going to say, well, was it worth it? You know, you could have started Jordan Love and seen what you got and blah, blah, blah.
It's always worth it.
Yeah, you give your shot give yourself a shot in the dance, don't you?
Yep.
I mean, how many times have we seen it in different sports?
You never know.
We've seen those teams.
Well, let's put it this way: Minnesota's in the playoffs. Say they play the Giants and they lose.
Mhm.
Well, you know, they won 12. You know, you won 13 games and lost. Was it worth it? Sure, it was.
Yeah.
Because you had a shot.
You give yourself
I'd
a
rather be
shot.
doing that than sitting here in week 18 as a fan going, well, gee, I don't know what they're going to do because they went 7-10.
Yeah. I mean, look at Philly last year in the baseball postseason.
Yeah.
They went to the World Series. The Nationals, when they won the World Series, they were like a couple outs away from being eliminated by the Brewers.
There's a saying in the world of poker that says anyone with a chip in a chair has a chance. basically, if you got a little
That's
bit
a
of money and you're
great
at the
quote.
table, you got a shot.
That's a great quote, man. Look at you. That's dropping some knowledge right there. I like that. So, yeah. So I just, if that's gonna come, I know it's gonna come.
Oh well.
If they do, I just know. You get in a
Why-
dance and something can happen.
My thinking too is if you're a fan of a team, like, shouldn't you want your team to do well?
Right.
Like, it's not like you're tanking to, you have a chance to, if we lose, if you're the Bears, if you're a Bears fan, you're like, well, we could lose this game to Minnesota and maybe get the number 1 pick. Okay. Then, I mean, maybe you're not cheering for it, but if you just want to acknowledge that's a possibility, that's fine. But if you're just like, we have a chance to make the playoffs, but man, I don't want to because I don't know what'll happen when we get there.
And how
What's
many times?
What's the point? What's the point then?
Brandon, you and I love the draft.
We do,
We
but it's a
love that
crapshoot.
Thank you. It's a crapshoot.
Let's look at this. Let's put it this way: the best quarterbacks in the NFL, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, even if the last few years, even if it's not so much this year, whatever. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, they weren't number 1 or 2 overall picks.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, best receiver, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, weren't top half of the first round picks. Like, you look at a lot of these like high end best players at their positions, they weren't top 5 picks. Like, it helps. It helps to have a higher pick. But it's no guarantee that you're going to land some sort of game changer.
Yep. And the thing is too, like, people or fan bases will blame their GMs for those picks, but you know what? 31 other GMs and all the scouts would have the similar evaluations, Brandon. We do it every single year.
Yeah.
We do it every single, and the ones that we think are going to be higher, obviously sometimes there's a guy that falls, but you know what? That means 32 general managers are thinking the same thing. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I don't know though. Bill Polian had a first round grade on Tom Brady.
That's right.
And in 5 rounds didn't draft him, because if you have a first round grade on someone, even if you have Peyton Manning, you're not drafting somebody with a first round grade in the 5th round.
Exactly.
Never.
It's, I mean, for crying out loud, Bill.
Okay, Bill.
Yeah.
Obviously you did a lot of really, really good things, but
You're a Hall of Famer. You don't need to be saying stuff like that.
You're already over. You don't have to put yourself over.
Yeah. So, I mean, come on.
Yep.
That's no. I can't wait though for the next GM in, like, let's say 15 years. Say, well, we actually had Brock Purdy as a first rounder, and we were just lucky that he was still there in the 7th, 200
right.
some picks.
Yeah,
there.
exactly. We just didn't have enough chances to draft the guy that was the dead last pick in the draft.
Oh boy. So, all right. Well, should be a fun weekend. I'm old, so I knew it was coming, but wasn't the biggest fan of the Sunday night game because now I got to stay up late Sunday, and it better be worth it for a victory Monday. Because here's the thing: if they win, I'm gonna be too amped up because they're going to the postseason.
Yeah.
So I can't go to sleep right after that.
If they lose,
If they lose, then I'm gonna be really pissed, and then I won't be able to go to sleep because then I'll be listening to pressers trying to dissect if that was Aaron Rodgers' last game or not.
Trying to crack the code.
Yeah, because that's what everybody's doing now.
Oh yeah.
Is this going to be his last game at Lambeau? Like, oh boy. Here we go. All right, let's take our final break here. Then we got Cream of the Crop and the Carpet City Flooring Center Sports Spotlights. After these quick words. All right, we got 15 minutes to the top. Let's do the Carpet City
Yes.
Flooring Center Sports Spotlights.
All right, and this
Award
week
first.
we're gonna go a little bit north. We're gonna shine a spotlight on the New Auburn girls basketball team.
All right.
Improved to 8-1 with a win over Clear Lake last night. A Clear Lake team that's always good. And right now I know for sure it was like the best 5 or 6 game start they've had the 21st century. They kept winning, so I'm going to assume it is by far their best start of the 21st century. I mean, right now they're tied for the top spot in the conference with Prairie Farm and Lake Holcomb. They play both those teams next week. This is a team that last year, was under 500 and really was kind of struggling offensively. They were a bit younger, but this year they came back more of a really good defensive team. I mean, they don't allow much.
Mhm.
They've got good talent, and this is a team that was motivated. Like, they're I mentioned the defense. They're led. They got a 6-foot junior named Morgan Berg, no relation that I'm aware of, in case you're wondering. But she's really good around the basket, and they're just a really kind of tough-minded team. Like, they've picked up some big wins so far here, and like I said, this is the best season they've had. At least to the start of the season, probably since 2004 when they won a regional title. So, New Auburn girls basketball team, Coach Eric North. You guys are off to a really good start. So you guys this week, you're the Carpet City Flooring Spotlight.
Spotlight. Good one right there. I like it. All right. Let's just let the man do it if it's going to do it on time. Come on. All right, your cream of the crop this week, Brandon. I'll go first because yours is better. So yeah, yours is better. Yours is
pretty good too because we had the same. We were talking off Aaron. We kind of had the same two. It's just a matter of who was.
Yep.
I thought you were doing the one I'm going to do, and I was thinking about doing the one you're going to do. So
I went over all the college football playoff games.
Yeah,
because they were highly entertaining. I know everybody's like, because we do this after every big game or best, bowl,
best whatever ever. But by far. I mean, the college football playoff semis aren't that long of a history, but these 2 games,
they were amazing. They were highly entertaining, a lot of fun. So they were my cream of the crop for that.
Yes.
But you have the better one.
Mine is going to be everything that we've gotten reaction-wise since the DeMar Hamlin situation Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
Just seeing the amount of people that have shown their support, that have, it's been well established. Kind of, a while back, the GoFundMe he set up, he was trying to help, get Christmas presents for kids, and apparently, some people found that, and at this point, there's like several millions of dollars or something like that.
Yeah.
That like, just the way people have responded to this,
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just such a scary situation, and let's be real, this was a spot where for many reasons, people kind of been maybe either a jerk or just kind of been just non-caring about it. It's like, oh, well, who knows? You got hurt. Who cares? Like, no, it's a bigger deal than that. But just seeing the response from so many people, not just in the NFL, but all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
In different walks of life besides pro sports. It's just, there's a lot of things that you can certainly point to and say, man, things just aren't really super fun right now. Like, people can be divisive about certain things, but this is something that people have really, like, this is a spot where you can see the good in people. And I think that's something that's really cool to see.
Well said. Yeah. I mean, we're hearing more about like the assistant athletic trainer.
Yeah, exactly. The people, hero.
Yeah.
Hero.
100%. And, like I've started, and that's why I asked Austin about it too with, CPR. I've been seeing people kind of talk about taking CPR classes and all that too. And it's like, if, I'm glad that's kind of coming out of that too, where people are like thinking about maybe I should do this. And,
people are kind of realizing that you can probably have a superpower. Like, you take those classes, like you have the ability to save somebody's life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Definitely. So I'll tell you what, I'm looking into it.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
Yeah,
you never know.
You could do it, and maybe it never pops up. You hope it never pops. You
hope you never have to use it.
Yes, it's something you hope you never have to use. But if you do, can make all the difference in the world.
Yep, absolutely. So, all right, should we cover some bases?
Let's do it
here because we got about 10 minutes left. Brandon, there's we got the Bucks game tonight going up against Charlotte. We're about a little over a month away from the trade deadline. It's February 9th. Bogdanovich from the Pistons now is the latest report. Could the Bucks be attached to acquiring him? No word whether the Pistons are looking to move on from him. I feel like it's going to cost a lot to get any type of like high-end talent because of the talent at the top of the Eastern Conference alone.
Yes.
But my question is, are you concerned with Chris Middleton with that nagging knee injury? He's only played a handful of games since coming back from wrist injury. So, I mean, should we be concerned about Chris Middleton's availability?
I'm not right now, but talk to me again in a couple weeks.
Mhm.
If it continues to linger once you start to get into February, then I'm a little concerned.
Mm-hmm. I know there's still talk about Jamison Crowder. I think I saw something that
Jay Crowder,
excuse me, that the Bucks offered like 4 second-round picks and a couple players. Like, they desperately want the man. My thing is, if there is going to be lingering issues with Middleton, I feel like that improves Grayson Allen's stock to stay with the Bucks.
Yes.
Because you still want a shooter. Because Crowder's not a shooter.
No.
Once in a while, he'll hit one from three.
He can hit one, but he's not a guy that can get hot and hit you 4 or 5.
He's not
very
known
often
for being
Correct.
creating his own and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And that's why I feel like if there is going to be a lingering, because Grayson Allen's still like him and Jordan Noah are like the top 2 talked about being traded.
Yes.
But again, okay, you could say it, but what are you going to get in return for like a guy like Jordan Noah?
Right.
Probably going to get more in return for Grayson Allen, but if Middleton's going to be out an extended time, I'd rather keep Allen then, because then you've got an outside shooter, a 3-point shooter.
And plus you got the chemistry issue, the chemistry that's built up.
Right. Well, did you see the Bill Simmons where he talked about on his podcast apparently that he's hearing that there's chemistry issues with the Bucks and that there's some weird stories coming around. And my thing is, okay, is it chemistry within the locker room or chemistry on the court? Because they've had guys in and out of that lineup so much where it's like, it's like a different lineup every night almost, it seems like the last couple of weeks. So is the chemistry in terms of like guys getting along, or is it just the chemistry on the court? Joe Ingles just finally got playing, a few weeks ago.
And to put in perspective, you mentioned the difference. Jamison Crowder, or Jay Crowder, now I did it,
See
so we're even. For his career is about 34.5% shooter from 3. So not bad.
Mhm.
A little more than 1 out of 3. Grayson Allen is 39%.
Yeah.
And this year is 37%, which is down for him. 2 of the previous 3 years, he was 40% or better. So that's doesn't sound like much, but that's a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's how I kind of look at it. But you're right. This next couple weeks, I just feel like the trade deadline. I think John Horst is going to make a move because he's shown that in his past. I just don't know if it's going to be for a big time. And that's the thing too. Is like, if you get one of those guys, where are you going to put him in the lineup, assuming Middleton does come back?
Yes.
And then you got the Drew Holiday, who's going through some stuff too with an illness that they keep saying is non-COVID related.
Mhm.
But at least they still got Giannis doing his thing, even though he wants to be boring, he said. But
I like that quote though.
I do
Like
too,
basic,
yeah.
because
He's
it
just
makes
saying-
sense, because at some point with certain people, like when you see somebody do something well for so long, it does get boring. Like
Mhm.
you just put truck it for ground. Like there's a lot of times Aaron Rodgers, he'll uncork a just ridiculous 50-yard pass, and you're just like, okay, well, you almost expect it.
And then when he has like a little bit like this year, everybody's like, what's wrong with him? But then you kind of look at the numbers and it's a little down,
Yeah.
but still.
But
it's
then and then suddenly in the game he'll uncork a 50-yarder that's perfect over the shoulder. Somebody like, oh, okay, there it is.
Or that Mercedes Lewis throw that he had on a sideline or
Yes.
something like
Yeah,
that.
you just go, okay, there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you
They
know,
set
if
the
it was,
bar so high that if it's a little bit below,
yeah.
like the example I use, well, if Giannis like scores 20-some points for 2 games in a row, people are gonna be like, what's wrong with Giannis?
Yeah, well, that's pretty darn good.
Yeah. It's just because they said, but I agree. Like, I know what he was saying.
Yes.
It's
just
not,
funny. It's just funny to hear.
Right. He's like, I want to be boring. And I'm like, Giannis can never be boring. Like, we actually had a topic with this, Brandon. Like, who are the best, but they were the most boring athletes?
Tim Duncan.
That was the most popular one. And like I said, if you have a nickname called the Big Fundamental,
That's awesome, first of all. But
Yeah.
yes, like he just went about his business. He was,
I feel like Tom Brady's kind of boring. Like, he doesn't have the Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers.
no,
type of
he's
throws.
just very like, especially when he was in at his prime, at his peak, he was just very
Yeah.
like machine-like, just
Yes.
precise. Like,
Yep.
yeah, you're right. He wasn't doing a sidearm off one throw. He was just like, I'm gonna read the defense. I'm gonna go where it needs the ball. The ball goes where it needs to go. The ball goes where it needs to go. The ball goes where it needs to go, and you're in the end zone.
Yeah, because we were kind of like talking about boring not personality wise, but like on the field or
No,
on the
just
court.
like how, yeah,
I mean, could you make case Jerry Rice was kind of like that too?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's not
'cause
a Randy Moss.
No, because he worked so hard that he just made everything look easy.
Like that's why I said Favre you could never say was boring because you never knew what to
I mean, could you say
expect,
someone like Emmitt Smith was boring?
Yeah.
I mean, he played behind a good offensive line, but he was just always in the right spot.
And then I think Luke said, "What about Barry Sanders?" I said, Barry Sanders not.
Oh gosh, Barry Sanders was never boring. That's
Personality, maybe.
yes,
but
as
on the field,
as a person, but not as a player.
no, because like I said, right now, as soon as somebody says Barry Sanders, you're replaying a run.
You're
in your head.
some play where he jukes 5 guys.
Yep. It's probably like that Patriots one, the slow-mo that NFL Films always does. Or yeah, we're always, if you can imagine a couple of plays, they're not boring.
Yes.
That's kind of where I go about it with that. So like Jordan, no. Like you expected Jordan, but Jordan also had like holy crap plays.
Yes.
We can
you can see them in your head.
Yep. Can you think of a Tom Brady electric throw right now? I can't.
No.
You know, I can think of Patrick Mahomes right away with no throws and
or Rodgers or Josh Allen or Favre or so many others.
Yep. So, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
I think the other most popular one was Tim Duncan. Tony Gwynn was another popular one.
Yeah, yeah.
Who were some of the other ones off the top of my head? Those were the top 2, I think. Yeah, those were. Oh, and somebody did mention the 90s Jazz teams, Karl Malone and John Stockton. And, you know,
if you don't get excited by bounce passes and nice moves in the block, come on now.
Jeff Hornacek,
Greg Ostertag.
Oh man, those were the prime days, baby. I was trying to think of like a center, like an old school 90s center, where all they did was get the ball in the post, back it down, and do a little layup.
Well, that was like pretty much it. Like there were so many guys. Like it's when you get beyond like the Shaqs, then that were just like you could see like a team that like the Jazz. It's like they had Greg Ostertag, but it could have been 17 other guys.
Yeah, maybe like a Luke Longley or something.
Yeah,
like
Luke.
that.
Because that in some ways that's how the Bulls operated.
Yeah.
Cartwright, Wennington, Longley.
Yep.
They were all essentially kind of the same. Large guys that were in there first for their defense and the rebounding, and put in a couple buckets a game.
Yeah. So, but that's what I'm like: dribble, lay it in. Just because they're so Shaq, you can't say that was like. The only one I could think of was maybe Patrick Ewing.
How about David Robinson?
He had a little bit of an outside shot.
Okay.
But he would be one too.
Yeah.
Because especially with his personality and demeanor.
Yeah. He was very. I mean, he was a
Naval
Academy. He's Navy man. He's very straight laced.
Those were the top 2. Like Olajuwon, no, because I can already picture the footwork.
Well, and then you hear like even after the fact, like you hear the this like the story. I think it was Shaq during the this magic moment 30 for 30 when he's talking about Hakeem kind of trash talking him a little bit when they in that finals.
Yep, definitely. So,
but in a very Hakeem way.
Oh yeah. All right, we only got about a couple minutes left there, so make sure we're gonna have a new episode of the podcast up. Shortly afterwards. We're not gonna tell you what the original content. We'll have some of the highlights from this show, but we're gonna have something
specifically for that. Which, based on the topic Dan told me, I was very excited when you told me the topic.
Good.
Like I was like, I gotta think about this one a little bit.
I almost went a different route because I was thinking of you. You want to know the show I've been binge watching lately?
What's that?
Boy Meets World.
I know when the show I have been, and it's another 90s show, I've been DVRing and catching up. Third Rock from the Sun.
Really?
Yes. It's been on like IFC, and I'm like, so I just set my YouTube TV to just record it. So I'm actually in the last season now, and I'm really enjoying it.
Well, it was because my kid's been watching the Disney Channel streaming, and they've gotten all those, and I saw it. I'm like, and I'll start watching.
Did you get to the episode where with Vader? The wrestler?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I'm like when they're a senior in high school right now.
Okay, so you're into it.
But like I said a nugget the other day, Brandon. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Mr. Feeney, his real life wife, who was also in Boy Meets World, but she was Tim Allen's mom in Home Improvement. She is from Wisconsin Rapids.
Nice.
Yeah.
There's always a connection.
There's always Boy Meets World has a lot of Home Improvement connections if you think about it on that show.
Guess it.
Sean's dad, Harry's Hardware. Sean's Corey's mom was Jill's friend in the first few seasons.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. And then the Feeney and wife connection sort of thing.
Very cool.
Al Borland was on an episode. Heidi was on an episode that I just watched.
Boy Meets World was ABC, right?
TGIF.
So they were Home Improvement was ABC too, right?
Yep. But that was TGIF.
All right.
But the question I was going to ask you was, and maybe we'll do this later on, was TGIF dads. Danny Tanner. Matthews, Carl Winslow.
For me, it's Carl Winslow.
Yeah. I thought you were going to go step by step.
Patrick Duffy.
Yeah. I thought you were going to go there. So we might have to have this debate later on.
We also need to incorporate like 90s intro themes for TV shows.
I would agree. Boy Meets World's pretty solid. I'll admit it.
I'll sing Step by Step theme any day of the week.
A lot of Midwest connections with those
Yes.
on there too. Perfect Strangers of Chicago, Family Matters of Chicago, Step by Step. Oh yeah. All right. There's your random off tangent to finish up this one. Have a good weekend. Hopefully we'll have a victory Monday coming at you.